Okay, welcome to the April 17th meeting of the Budget Committee. And actually tonight we've got a little bit of a difference at the front end because the Select Board has a couple of articles that they've got to make some corrections on before they come to us. So the meeting is actually going to take place in two portions. The first portion, the Select Board will meet on those items, and then after that, then the Budget Committee will actually meet and do our recommendations. So at this point, I'm going to make a motion to recess the Budget Committee until the Select Board finishes their rework on the articles, then we'll come back into session.
Second it.
All those in favor? Opposed? The meeting is now in the hands of the Select Board.
Rolf, I'm going to turn it over with your permission to Joe Bruno, who has been handling the budget from our standpoint since we started. So, thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Sam. First one is Article 21. If you look at Article 21 on page 30 in the documents in front of you, thanks to Rolf, he picked up that we could use about $32,000 more in TIF money that we can apply to the sidewalk project. So that will increase the amount of money that we can use in the TIF. So what I need is a motion to that effect, that we increase Article 21 by $32,000.
Make a motion we increase Article 21 by $32,000 for a new total of $233,246.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
The only question I have, and Teresa just wrote it down, the $233,246 is the new corrected number, Nancy?
It is.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Yes, please.
There's a budget selectmen meeting at the moment. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Next is Article 38 on page 33. Article 38, that was the CIP article. And what that does, it takes out the $32,000 that has been moved to the TIF from the CIP.
I make a motion to reduce the original amount of Article 38 by $32,000 for a new total of $1,169,658.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
I was just going to do a second.
We haven't had a second yet, but
Point of order. I do believe, just for the public to understand the process of the Select Board meeting, and I know Mr. Desjardins, you were a little late. However, before a motion is made, even though this is a Select Board meeting, the public will have an opportunity to comment. So I would just ask the chair to clarify that, please, for the public and for any other members who are here, that the rules state that before a motion is made, the question is brought up, questions are asked of members of the Select Board, of the sponsor, and then the public has an opportunity to make a comment for 3 minutes. And then a motion is made and seconded.
the public can make a comment when we're all done.
Excuse me, I didn't hear that.
The public will make a comment when we're all done.
But that's not the Select Board meeting, that's the
We are having a select board meeting right now.
correct. And if you check the rules, Mr. Parliamentarian and Mr. Chairman, you will see that every warrant article that comes before the Select Board, there is an opportunity for the public to comment on any specific warrant article. Or article before them.
You will have a chance to comment when we're all done. That's my ruling.
That's incorrect.
Well, that's fine, but that's my ruling. That's your opinion.
No, it's not opinion, that's the rules.
Okay.
So you need a second?
Yeah, he needs a
A
second.
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Article 40. That's on page 34. Okay, so this changes around the TIF amount to $32,000. And it increases the revenue sharing because we got a new notice of revenue sharing from the state today, where we're getting about $21,000 to $22,000 more than we were estimating. So this is actually the revenue line.
I make a motion that we decrease Article 40 by $32,000 and then increase the revenue sharing line in Article 40 from $108,490 to the new estimate of $130,470 for a new total of Article 40 of $1,917,470.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Now we will listen to public comment. Anyone from the public wish to make any comments?
Good evening, Charles Levitt, East Raymond. I just want to go back to a few months ago where we had a discussion and we were bantering about what the revenue picture would look like with state revenue sharing. And at that particular time, and we know we try to very much stay away from partisan politics in the town of Raymond, but a comment was made that a gut instinct of a member of the Board of Selectmen was, the gut instinct was the Democrats will do nothing and there'll be no monies, that we should budget zero for revenue sharing. So all I know is we had an increase of $32,000. I'm assuming we also had revenue sharing from the state, and I'm going to ask, not knowing what that figure is it's well over $100,000. So therefore, it would seem to me, number one, not trying to inject, thank you, Mr. Reynolds, $130,470. So I guess in fairness, and not wanting to be partisan, that we should say that our gut instinct was wrong, that the Democrats obviously did something, and the legislature and the executive branch did something in Augusta, and to the tune of $130,000. So as we go forward and think about that big mistake, I think that will play into other mistakes as we look at this budget going forward. Thank you.
Any other people from the public want to make a comment? Seeing none?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? We will now turn it over to the Budget Finance Committee.
Yeah, I will call the Budget Committee back out of recess. One announcement to make before we get too far into this. Because she has moved, Tacey Hartley did have to resign from the board. So at this point, we're a seven-member board until after the election, when hopefully we'll get reflushed. But as soon as she moved out of Raymond, she had to resign. So first order of business then is to look at the minutes from the last meeting. Any changes, additions, corrections?
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? Opposed?
I'll abstain, I wasn't
I
present.
abstained because I had to leave early because of medical issues, so.
The minutes are approved. At this point, I will open the floor to public comment, limit of 3 minutes per person, before we get into making our recommendations on the articles.
Good evening, Charles Levitt, East Raymond. I think we all know that this budget and the atmosphere that was created around this budget has been much different than it has in years past. There's been, I've come to this podium many times over the years, and there's been many times clear and concise and fair hearings that are held. I can see with this budget going forward why we deviated from that as a community. We've limited public comment. We've put timeframes on it. We've changed the rules midstream. We have gone from a year, last year, when we wanted the input of the community on a $2 million bond at the ballot box, and this year we're going to town meeting with a $2 million bond issue that has been very lightly explained and especially to the satisfaction of most folks like myself who might be considered a budget wonk. So my sense is that there's a distinct fear of the voter in the town of Raymond that this budget, which is grossly overreaching in every aspect, from the undesignated fund balance to the capital improvement, even to the TIF, which, if you look at the history of the TIF, is not even appropriately being used. So that said, it gets down to a simple matter and a formula, and I want to thank the Select Board, because in its fear and desperation of trying to limit public input into this budget, they've actually done the people in the town of Raymond a favor. Instead of having to go to the ballot box on June 10th, all we need to see are people in the town of Raymond. You don't have to come to hearings on spending $2 million for ball fields and tennis courts. What you need to do is on June the 3rd at 7 o'clock, come to the meeting and say no. Typically, there's about 80 people who come, so I believe if somewhere in the vicinity of 100, 150 people come to the town of Raymond, we did it before. 7 or 8 years ago, there was an unreasonable school budget that came before us. People came to the meeting and just said no. And I think it makes it very simple for the voters in the town of Raymond. You don't have to get too engaged. Just make sure on that night you put your DVRs on so you can watch your favorite TV shows, and come to the Raymond town meeting. And come there and just vote no. Whatever issue comes up, just vote no. And then these two boards, which have done everything in their power to try to limit public debate, will have the message sent loud and clear that the people in the town of Raymond are not going to be saddled with this kind of debt going forward for not just this year, but the next 2 or 3 years going forward. Thank you.
10 years.
Okay, let us begin. First article that's looking for a recommendation is Article number 9.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
A question, if I might.
Yes.
Before we get into the warrant. At one point in our process here, we did have estimates, mill rate estimates prepared. And there's been quite a few changes since those first estimates came out. Have there been any new estimates prepared?
I'd ask,
Did you bring that this evening, Nancy?
Understand that the estimated mill rate is for comparison purposes only. It's using the same valuation as last year. It's using the same school budget as last year, the same overlay as last year. The only changes that are taken into consideration are the municipal budget. And yes, the original mill rate estimate was $11.60. Using those figures, it's now $11.57.
Does that include the bonds?
The 2013 road bond,
Yeah.
yes, but not the ones that have not
Okay.
yet been voted
Right.
on or
Right.
taken out.
There was one estimate that the mill rate would be $11.57. I think that was the original. There's been quite a few changes.
I think it's down another 2 cents
Another
then
two?
from that.
But that doesn't include the new bonds.
But that's because those payments won't be in 14-15.
We still have to vote for them, so,
Correct, but they won't affect the mill rate,
well, eventually they will.
but not in 14-15.
but the question that was asked was,
Well, I realize that, but
So that, do you recall what percent increase that is from the current mill rate? I can't do the math quickly here. I could dig out my calculator, but you don't have it right there, that's all. But it's jumping from 11.25 to somewhere in the 11.55. Good, thank you.
Now, we're, the road bond, this year, we're just paying, interest on it, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
The-
Why are we doing that?
Because the bond was issued in November of last year.
Yeah.
And the way the bond is structured, the fiscal year, this fiscal, or the payments in
Yeah.
this fiscal year that this budget will cover is interest only.
Yeah,
The
but
principal and interest do not start until the following year.
You know,
until the following fiscal year.
you know, I have college students, and I keep referring them to paying interest and principal on their loans because it's the right thing to do, and I think we should be doing that, Rolf. So
The way the bond is structured
Yeah.
is in fiscal 2015. It's only interest. The principal does not begin until 16, and that's what the people that bid the bond wanted. So,
yeah, I understand that, and people that bid the bonds are making money on it too. So you know.
the bond does not have provision for
They're
any
municipal
early-
bonds, and they're very profitable right now in the financial industry. And I mean, why not invest in municipal bonds when you can? To me, we should be paying interest and getting rid of our bills. Instead, we're putting the taxpayers in a deeper hole. So.
It's consistent with what was in the report and the actual bond setup that was discussed in the road plan. So nothing has changed there. It was merely a function of when the timing of the bond was, when the interest payments would hit and things like that.
Yep.
So nothing has changed from what was originally discussed on
I
it.
totally understand that. I have municipal bonds, Mr. Olson, just to make it clear.
Yep.
So I know how they work.
I'm sure many of us do because they're embedded in a lot of the funds that we all have.
But it's just, I cannot vote for something like that because of the ethical issue that goes with it. I cannot vote for municipal bonds as a public official because I invest in them. So that's what I'm getting to. Thank you.
Other questions before we move on?
One last concern that I have here. When we first opened the budget process, the statement was made, we're going to ask the town would ask the department heads for their wish list. Their entire expense budget would include everything that they wished they had. And they did a good job with that. And it seems to me we are still sticking with that. Am I correct or not? We haven't said, well, maybe you don't need that right now, maybe you can put it off for another year or two, but I don't recall that we've done that. So we are in effect giving the department heads just about everything in that wish list. Bob?
Being involved in the fire department, I know for a fact that they did not ask for everything that they wanted. In fact, they were asked to roll it back before the initial budget submission. I don't know for the other departments, but I can say for the fire department that is the case, that they did not get their wish list to present.
I think I wish.
Excuse me, you should recuse yourself.
I'm not voting on anything. Right?
Yeah, well, you know,
When it comes time to vote,
yeah,
I will.
yeah.
but I can still have.
Yeah, well, if you're involved that deeply, you should recuse yourself.
I will, when it comes time to vote.
Let's keep our heads here. Don?
Wish list is a mildly pejorative word. We were asked to come back with the needs that had been deferred. So if you want to characterize that as a wish, you could, I suppose, but there should be no one should construe this to be, pie in the sky sort of wants or wishes.
Well, I didn't create that phrase. That was, I'm sure if we looked.
Yeah, no, I know you don't mean any,
DVDs,
I know you don't mean any
yeah.
harm by it. I'm just saying, I'm just clarifying the point. That's all.
And I think it's even in writing too, here.
It is,
I can't,
it's part of the charge.
so. But I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss something, because it does seem like we are still at that level. And I'm not sure, I'm not complaining about it,
Yeah.
saying that they're overreaching in any way either. I think they need it. They have been
Yeah.
handed some short
Yeah,
straws.
I think we're saying the same thing. All I'm saying is that there was a request by the selectmen to come forward with some things that had been deferred, and you can characterize them in different ways, but I don't think of it that way myself, I guess.
But I would think, there might be people out there that would be saying, hey, the town has given them everything they need, and that isn't the case necessarily.
Sure.
We may have just brought them up to present day needs. Thank you.
A couple of opening comments. I think Mr. Levitt's comment about people coming to the town meeting is a really good point. And if the work that we've done, whether it's the select board or whether it's the budget and finance committee, is not something that you like, then by all means vote against it. And if it works for you, vote for it. But I think getting people out, it's very, very true that the work that we're doing here is designed to go in front of the town. And I, for one, try to get input from people that I know, but I understand that I don't know everybody in town, and I probably only know a slice of the people in town. So I think it's really important that we come out. And secondly, Mr. Desjardins' point about bonds, I totally agree with you, Dana, that the concept of interest only is generally something that I would really shy away from, because it's just something where you never pay it off. It's like a credit card that just you're only paying off the interest only. You know where that gets you. It's not a good place. I think the timing, as I understand it, on these bonds was also used to ensure that the retirement of other bonds that were coming due would make it less of a bump. And so it was a way of also flattening out so that townspeople didn't have a large hit. And so in that, if I remember back, in that what we were trying to do was that, and that it was done, I think, in an overt way, not a covert way. It's kind of an exception to what I would usually, totally agree with you, Dana, on, where how bonds should be done and how they should be managed. Thank you.
Other comments? All right. Article 9. See if the town will vote to appropriate $15,000 from the Open Space Fund to donate to the Boy Scouts Pine Tree Council for the purchase of a 30-acre parcel of land along the southeastern side of the Tenny River for conservation purposes. The Conservation Committee recommends the article. Selectmen recommend the article.
I'll move the article. I'll second it.
Discussion? Dana?
I have to disclose that I live on the River Road. And the Boy Scout Pine Tree Council, they're not exactly the best neighbors. I plow the road in the winter. I grade the road, I just graded it up to my house, and then once it gets drier, it'll be done further. But we've got bigger fish to fry. Donating money to the Boy Scout Council to me is the last thing on my list. We have much more important things, whether it be public safety, you know, or whatever. $15,000 from open space. Yeah, I know the money's there, but that money comes from tree growth. And again, I'm gonna say it again, the money from tree growth should never go to open space. It should go to the general fund. And it should be spent on things that are worthwhile. And this piece of property, in my opinion, is, you know, it's going to be managed by Loon Echo. Whoop-de-doo. But, you know, it's a waste of taxpayer money. No, that's basically what I got to say. And I'm going to vote against it, so.
Other discussion?
I guess what, you know, Dana hit on a little bit, but, you know, the purpose of the open space fund. And this is the type of project that it was intended for. And this is really not just a single phase project. They're looking at trying to preserve the Tenny River corridor over time, in which there won't be any establishment of houses or neighborhoods, if you will. So again, seeing that these funds are being brought in through the Open Space Fund, I'm going to vote to approve it.
May I make another comment, please? You know, the thing is, nobody takes care of that road, except the people that live on it. You're taking away, they've already taken away potential house sites off that road, which is, you know, it's fine by me. It's actually raises my property value, and you know, I probably shouldn't be against this, but the thing is, when it comes time to help pay, you know, for bills, that the plowing and it's not there. So there's no help other than the people that live on that road. And you know, it's just I can't speak for everybody, because most of the people that live on that road are from out of state, and some live in state, but I'm the only Redmond resident that lives on that road, other than Andy Bean. So we take care of the road. We paved the entrance last year on our own. There was no money there from anybody. If the Boy Scouts want to come forward and say, yeah, we're gonna help you guys out and help you, you know, plow the road, take care of the road, replace culverts, and do that, then I'm more than welcome to listen to them. But I haven't heard that yet. Haven't heard it yet. They've got all kinds of equipment coming in. Haven't heard that yet. I haven't seen anybody on the River Road. I raked it last week. The road is perfect, even when at the entrance of Camp Hines. But it's you know, we're spending public funds on a private road, and in general, I have a problem with that.
Other? Peter?
Question, I refresh my memory as to who owns the land now.
Dennis Cole owns the land that the Boy Scouts are looking at.
The 30-acre parcel?
Yes. Dennis Cole, a very good friend of mine, owns the land.
Raymond resident?
Yes.
Don?
I'll just say, in my conversations with the Scout executive, this is inconsistent with what he tells me, and their willingness to contribute should they be asked. So, and their contributions they've made to date.
So it's surprising to me that you would say this sort of thing.
I haven't seen any money, Mr.
Have you asked for
Willard.
any money?
I've been
Okay.
asking, well, no,
Okay.
no,
Well, it
wait a
appears that-
minute.
it appears
Wait a
that-
minute, wait a
No,
minute.
no.
No, this guy is saying something that is a total lie.
Let's keep the
Well, no.
personalities down, let's keep the
Well, I'm
tone
sorry,
down.
but
Let's
he's-
keep the tone down.
Well, I'm sorry, but he's not telling the truth.
He's telling what he's heard, you're telling
Well-
what you heard, someplace in
Well,
there.
I know what
Okay.
I've heard because
You have said
I
what-
take care of the damn road.
Excuse me. You've said what you heard, he said what he's heard.
Well, let's
So-
get the Boy Scouts there with their bulldozers and fix my damn road then.
Then I would suggest you contact the Boy Scouts. You've made your point, we've heard your point. Let's now continue to
No,
move on.
we're giving public money to a road, a private road, Ralph. We gotta vote on it.
Yes.
I'd like to move the question, please.
Okay, actually, that motion requires a second and a vote to move a question.
Second.
Second? All those in favor of moving the question? Opposed? Okay. So the motion on the floor is to recommend the
How?
15,000. All those
Live
in
in Russia
favor?
now.
Opposed? The motion is carried.
I was a yay, sorry.
Article 10, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $30,000 from the open space funds and an additional $20,000 from the timber harvest funds for a total of $50,000 toward the purchase of 347 plus or minus acres along Coneska Road, including Pismire Mountain, known as the Raymond Community Forest Project. Expenditure of these funds will be continued upon successful state, federal, and/or private foundation grants, awards, and local fundraising. The agreement to exercise an option to buy the land for $506,000 from Hancock Lumber Company expires on December 31st. Conservation Committee recommends Article 10. Selectmen make no recommendation on Article 10. Is there a motion?
I move to recommend.
Is there a second?
For discussion purpose, I'll second that.
Discussion. Brian?
If the other funds are not found, does the money come back and return to the open space fund versus the general fund?
Yes, because it's open space funds,
Okay.
it can only go back into
Into
open space.
Just want to double check.
Because it's,
Well, no,
It
some
would-
of
it
that
would only-
money's
it would
coming
only-
from timber
well-
harvest.
Oh, and timber harvest,
Yeah.
thank you.
yeah, but
Where
the
would-
money
where
that
would
comes
timber
from, the
harvest
money
come
that comes from the open space fund can only go back
We're
into
counting
the
our
open space
chickens
fund.
before they're hatching.
And the timber harvest funds would go where? If they come back? If it's not approved, the money comes back because it's
Timber
not
harvest
moving
Should
forward?
go to
Would
general
go into the
fund.
general fund.
General fund.
I mean,
Undesignated fund balance.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion is defeated. Article 12. To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen on behalf of the town to sell and dispose of any property acquired by the town for non-payment of taxes pursuant to a policy adopted by the selectmen, as may be amended from time to time. The policy to remain consistent with the state statutes and laws. In all cases, conveyance to be made by a municipal quitclaim deed.
I move to recommend.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Yes.
On the last article where it was defeated, that just means that you will have a motion not to recommend. The article will still appear,
The articles,
but I believe
yes.
you should probably ask for a motion to not recommend the article.
True.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Board of Finance recommend
You
move
need-
that we do not recommend this article.
Just for parliamentarian purposes, you need to have someone who voted on the prevailing side bring up the article again to reconsider it.
Well, actually, no, it doesn't have to. If a motion is made in alternate terms, it does not have to be it doesn't have to be a
Well, you already
reconsideration.
got by the article,
Yeah.
so you need to go back to it. That's the only thing.
Yeah. So we first need a motion to reconsider the article.
So moved.
Second.
Well, we just voted on Article 12, didn't we?
Yeah, so we're,
So it's like, should we
no,
get
what we're
rid of
doing,
Article 12 or?
You already voted on that. You're just going back to reconsider article.
yeah, we voted on Article
All right.
12.
I just want to
There's
make
a
sure
motion on the
with
floor
the
to read-
parliamentarian.
Article 10.
There's a motion on the floor to reconsider Article 10. We then will open the article for a motion, but first we need to vote to reconsider. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, now I'll entertain the motion to not recommend.
I'll make the motion not to recommend this article.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion to not recommend is approved. Article 13. To see what date the taxes will be due and to set an interest rate for unpaid amounts. The Selectmen recommend the first half to be due October 31st, 2014, second half to be due April 30th, 2015, with an interest rate at 7% on any unpaid balances. The Selectmen recommend the article.
Move to recommend Article 13.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, please.
No.
Is the 7% the maximum that the state treasurer authorizes?
Yes. Brian?
I was going to ask, is that what our current rate is for in 2013? Okay, thanks.
Dana?
Can we lower that amount?
You can make a recommendation
I mean-
on a lower amount, yes.
No.
You'd have.
People are tight on money and it's like 7%. You know, I wish I could get 7% on my money right now in a bank. But
You can
invest with you maybe? Or?
no, I don't know if you can suggest an amendment or an amendment.
Yeah, I'd like, if I can, I'd like to lower it down to 3%. I mean, that, you know, people are tight with their money. The people who pay their taxes, Rolf, pay their taxes on time. And the ones that can't, don't need the extra burden of 4%. I mean, 3%'s enough. Man,
Okay.
I don't know where the state's coming from with this. It's just beyond me, but
So
7% is.
Is there a second? Is there a second to the amendment? Seeing no second, the amendment is not accepted. So we're at the original motion, which is the 7%.
7%, isn't that awful high?
Can
somebody explain that?
Yeah, the reason that you set it at 7% is as a disincentive, you know, to non-payment. If you go down as low as 3, I mean, I don't know, I mean, what people do with their money, but some people do have more elaborate schemes for investing money, and you know, so if you set it low enough, you know, what happens is people sometimes, despite what has been stated, sometimes people, you know, will not pay the taxes and delay that. So that's why the state authorizes this level, to make it a pretty, I guess, draconian sanction for not paying your taxes. And so, you know, I get the point, you know, that it's higher than the prevailing interest rates in the bank, but that's what it's designed to be, I guess.
My question was going to be.
Crazy.
We charge 7% on only 7%. We don't tack on penalties and fees and any of that
Oh,
add-on stuff the IRS
Yeah, we
likes to
do.
do. It's just a straight 7%.
Well, it depends on how long the process rolls along.
Yeah.
You know, you can get into that situation with tax acquired properties,
Well, that's a different story.
yeah.
Brian?
I mean,
Yeah.
just as a point of explanation, I do think that's a high amount. The reason I'm voting for it is because I believe that we're competing against other debts that person probably has. And if
That's
we put it
another
at
good
too
point.
low a point, then we're low man on the totem pole and everything else is gonna be paid. And I believe that I think it's unfair to those people who pay their taxes for others not to pay. So I think that's why I'm in favor of it.
You know, and I agree with you, Brian, but if we put it so high, sometimes when we compete against the other people, we don't get paid. And we've seen that. Look at the town report. There are people that owe taxes in this town that are incredible. I mean, we've got Embed Tech that's $18,000. We'll never collect that. Look at the town report. You know, and that was a failure. So it's just and
I'm not sure that the change in interest rate would affect that though.
Well, no, but if we do a good job collecting our taxes, it's one thing. But putting an interest rate that high is.
Okay. Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to set the interest rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes at 7% for the fiscal year. Selectmen recommend.
I'll move to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of town-owned personal property with a value not to exceed $35,000. Selectmen recommend. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Discussion? Brian?
So when a piece of equipment's sold, I should know this, I apologize, 3 years on the Budget Finance Committee, the money goes back into the undesignated fund, is that correct? Do we get an accounting of that at the end of the year as to what went into that fund from sold equipment?
A detailed breakdown?
Not the breakdown, but what the amount, I mean, I guess I could do the math, right? Because I'd see what the undesignated fund began with and then what it ended
Well, we can
with.
certainly provide one. We have never had one requested, but if you wanted to see one, we could
I'll make
do
a
that.
note for,
Yeah.
assuming I'm re-elected.
If you want to see specifically equipment, there are
Yeah,
other
I'm
things
just
that go
curious
into.
as to how much.
It
I think,
depends.
I think it makes all the sense for you guys to dispose of it, but I think in terms of transparency to those in town, it's good to also see what gets sold and what the values are.
Yeah.
Does it go back to CIP at all, or?
Excuse me.
I would defer to Nancy on that one. I think there have been times, I think, when we have done that.
It goes back into the account that it was
So
originally paid for.
Oh,
if a vehicle is bought, like Nathan buys a vehicle in his CIP budget and sells it, it goes back into CIP.
Oh,
So
okay.
there is a difference,
Yeah,
Brian.
that's good to know, thank you.
Yeah.
What we've tried
I'm glad
to do,
to enlighten you.
what we've tried to do is we've been running very lean vehicle-wise, so, that's how we've been able to do it to some degree. Buy and sell.
Good, thank you.
Would that flow
Jolly
in?
John.
Would that flow in and out of the revenue control reports?
It would be under CIP.
Yeah,
I mean,
CIP.
It would-
Appropriations.
It would be a
control.
negative expense under CIP.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to borrow from or appropriate from the undesignated fund balance surplus as they deem advisable to meet the unanticipated needs of the community that occur during the fiscal year. The selectmen recommend an amount not over $75,000.
Move to recommend Article 16.
Second.
At what figure?
That's 75.
Second.
Discussion?
Second. Frog in my throat or something, I don't know.
I don't know what kind of frog you got.
Discussion, none? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 17. To see if the town will authorize the selectmen for the fiscal year 2014-15 to transfer funds between appropriation accounts as long as the grand total of all appropriations is not exceeded. Any such transfer to be approved only at a properly called public meeting of the selectmen. Selectmen recommend.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to authorize the use of town employees and/or town-owned equipment or independent contractors hired by the town for maintenance on private roads in special and certain circumstances where in the public interest. Note of explanations, 3 examples. Tying in work done on a private road that intersects on a public road that intersects a private road, plowing snow on a private road to clear a way for emergency response apparatus, and in rarer emergency situations, maintaining a private road for school bus access to special education students as deemed necessary.
Move to
Selectmen-
recommend.
Second.
Is there discussion?
Yeah, I have a question on this, Rolf.
Yeah.
Since we're giving money to the Boy Scouts on River Road, does that mean that I'm going to be getting snow plowing on the River Road?
No.
Well, why not? I mean, it's in a rare emergency, you know.
Only if you're sick, Dana, then we'll come in.
I'm always sick, you know.
Other discussion?
Just trying to have fun, guys.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is
Mr.
carried.
Chairman, I abstained from this article.
Okay.
Why is that?
Because I own a private road.
I do too, I mean. And I don't get anything special done on my road. Do you?
I'm not gonna take the chance of asking for it.
Article 19, to see if the town, see if the town will vote pursuant to 32 MRSA subsection 2953 that orders of the municipal officers with respect to the closing of roads to winter maintenance shall be a final determination. Selectmen recommend.
Mr. Chairman, I thought I heard you say 32 rather than 23.
Oh, I'm sorry, 23.
Move to recommend Article 19.
Second.
Question or discussion?
This is a new article for us, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is in respect to the road commissioner being able to close roads for winter maintenance? Is that what the intent of this?
It's my understanding that, it's one that used to be there, it then was taken out, and it was recommended that it's back in there. It gives the town the ability to close a road if it needs to, and it doesn't require state approval at that level. It can be done at the municipal level. That's my understanding.
What's the purpose of it, though?
If a road has to be closed because of
Flooding?
flooding or impassable or whatever. So you don't, so you can make the decision locally and not have to bring in a state
Can you have
official.
Nathan explain that, please? If you can.
This article was suggested by the clerk. I think she attended a training where it was recommended, and so Louise did an explanation for the Board of Selectmen. And but I think what you've stated is generally the case, and is that right, Louise?
That's correct.
And so, I don't really have much more to say about it. It would be a very rare occurrence.
Ralph, I'm not sure why Budget Finance Committee would be involved in this. I don't see a financial impact to it anywhere.
I suppose if you close the road, you save some money, but you might,
Then in
you
that
might.
case-
I don't know, because if you're closing it, it's probably because there's something
Yeah,
damage that's gonna
yeah.
cost us
You-
more
you-
money.
you- You may well be correct on that one, but yeah.
Well, the second part of this is, if there is a financial impact, then do we need to consider a limit?
I'm not prepared to address it at, financial impact statement on that.
Steve?
The word winter, if we have a hurricane and a tree comes down in the fall, we gotta close the road, why is the word winter in there?
Just the way it was suggested when I
I mean,
was in the training.
telephone pole or an accident comes down across the road in the middle on July 4th, then you gotta call.
My guess is for an extensive period of time. Let's say a culvert goes out and takes you a couple of weeks to get it.
I personally, I really don't think this article needs to be in there at all, because there's no need of it, but, because we take care of, if there's a problem in roads, it's generally done either by P&K or Public Works, so.
Well, I think we're also dealing with wire down, which would involve.
Well, that's
CMP
CMP
people
and
like
stuff,
that. I
but-
can see other
I mean,
circumstances.
we did
You know,
have,
they close the roads regardless. If there's an emergency, they'll close the roads. You know, these people aren't stupid.
we
You know,
had this exact circumstance this winter right on my road in front of my house. It was a situation where the wires were down, the road had to be closed. We closed the road. Obviously, we're going to close the road for public safety. I think the recommendation here is from the Maine Municipal that this is the proper article that you should have to empower you to do that. So it's a legal, due diligence issue. And so if you want to close the road without the proper authority for public safety, I don't think anyone's going to find fault with that. But if you want to do it properly, this is how you do it properly.
I just don't like municipal telling us
I
what to
do go back to Marshall's point about it being appropriate or not appropriate for this group to make comment on it. Like, can we make a motion to, well, I guess we could all abstain or something, right?
Well,
How's that work?
what you could do is you could make a motion to amend, you could move to amend the motion to, that the Budget Finance Committee makes no recommendation. And then you vote it that way.
I'd like to make that motion.
What he said.
Yeah.
Who seconded that?
I'll second it.
So amendment is to make no, and that was Dana, seconded by Marshall. Okay. So what would...
If you determined this was a non-monetary article, maybe that would be the thing to do, and then we would just skip by this one for a Budget Committee recommendation in future years.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, where it's in there, now, we've got, so what's on the table right now is to accept the amendment. We're not voting the amendment yet, but it's to accept the amendment. Discussion on that. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so the amendment is accepted. So the motion now on the floor is that the Budget Finance Committee make no recommendation.
Second.
No, that's already.
I'll make that motion.
No, that's already been made.
All right.
That's what your,
No,
by
no.
your amendment being taken, that motion,
right.
that's what the motion
Well,
is
then
now on the
let's
floor.
vote on it so we can get out of here.
So, all those in favor?
Jesus Christ.
Opposed? Okay.
Maybe a note of explanation.
Okay.
Excuse me, who made the motion on the amendment in a second?
Dana made the motion on the amendment, Marshall seconded. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector or treasurer to accept prepayments of taxes not yet committed pursuant to 36 MSAR, subsection 506.
Move Article 20.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $233,246 from the tax increment of the Pipeline Route 302 Tax Increment Financing District for fiscal year 2014-15, projects proposed in the Tax Increment Financial District Program. motion?
Move to recommend Article 21.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to see more of an explanation of what the $233,000 is going into. We're only displaying $18,000 worth of items.
Okay, on your,
But the town won't see that at the town meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be
you
explained.
mean,
In the
you
middle
mean
of
at a
Thank you,
town
Bob.
meeting, you don't mean,
Not for this purpose
Oh,
to
okay.
vote, because we've been through that
Yeah.
process, we know what's in it. But just more of an explanation of what the $233,000 is buying.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, we'll do that.
The selectmen already asked that be done.
other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $521,467 for the administration account.
Move to recommend Article 22.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $51,998 for the assessing account.
Move Article 23.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes.
Dana?
How much of an increase is this? It's considerable. I mean,
Assessing, $4,571. And the bulk of that was in well, actually, the contract assessor went up 5,000.
Yep.
The assistant went up,
So it's basically salaries.
right.
Right. All right. Thank you.
I don't think it's actually salaries. It's a contract. He's not a salaried employee.
Well, there's also part of it that's salary because the assistant is in there too.
Yeah, he gets
So there's a
a
combination of the two.
For those of you who track such things, of course, the original contract bids came in lower, significantly lower than what we were paying the previous contractor. And so over time, we've seen that there has been an increased demand and additional time needs, and so that's what we're recommending. And so that was all discussed thoroughly during the Selectmen budget deliberations, and that's the recommendation. But, we're not very far off, and I couldn't tell you exactly which way, but my sense would be still under what we would have been with the previous contractor that we replaced some years ago. And Mr. LaBelle's doing a great job, and I think that's what I have to say about that.
Well, that's good to hear.
He's doing an excellent
Yeah,
job.
that's good to hear. Mike O'Donnell did a great job too, but, it's just, when we put stuff like this out to bid, we expect the lowest bid and a good job being done, and I'm glad Mr. LaBelle is doing a good job. Thank you, Don.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Oh,
One
sorry.
quick question, and apologies, I'm looking to try to answer my own question, but just to speed this up. At one point, we used to put money away in the assessment account for the big assessment that used to happen every 10 years.
Revaluation.
Revaluation, excuse me, thank you.
Yeah,
Do we still do that at all?
No, we do not.
And I know, Don, I think in one of our conversations, you were mentioning that there's not a likelihood of needing one in the near future, is that correct?
I'd let the
Given where
Selectmen
our
speak to that, but the quality
grand
ratios.
According to the state, which department is it? I forget. But we're
Revenue
at
Services.
about 101% of valuation right now.
And you have to go
Under
up to what, 110 before you?
No,
70.
there's a
70,
range, you have to
70, right?
drop
It's
down.
the low side.
It's the
that they're
low
working
side.
on.
To 70%.
Thank you.
You're paying too much.
But we're at 101 at the last report we saw last spring,
Okay.
so.
So the need,
The
there's
need
not
is
an
not there.
impending need. Okay,
Right.
that's fine.
And real estate has not moved, valuations have stayed flat, so.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $20,256 for the town hall account.
Recommend
article.
Article 24.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $472,497 for the insurance account.
Move Article 25.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, point of order regarding recusal on benefits to employees.
It's not a point of order because there's not a town employee that's
Conflict of interest, recusal for conflict of interest, it's an employee benefit that may accrue to the benefit of a family member or a member of the budget finance committee. That includes workers' compensation.
Mr. Chair, recusal is up to the individual person to recuse themselves unless challenged by a vote.
And the individual indicated they would recuse themselves, that's all.
No, the individual indicated they would recuse themselves on a different article.
That's correct.
Discussion,
And
discussion.
actually, conflict of
It's
interest-
been asked and answered, thank you.
Conflict of
Been asked
interest
and
also
answered, thank you.
includes discussion.
It has been asked and answered, thank you. Additional discussion.
Mr. Chair, is it possible to table this until we get, we're talking about adding full-time employee. That would impact, if we're not adding a full-time employee, that would impact this. I'm wondering if we table it until after that discussion.
You're asking for permission to take to move
Article.
article out of order.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which requires a motion. I guess this is a priority motion to take an article out of order.
You can table an article without discussion, take a vote, and then come back to the article.
So,
Do we still have discussion or?
no,
No,
because
not-
this
you
is
have
this
a
is a
tabling motion.
this is a preferential it would be a preferential motion on that to table it to a time certain. So that would take precedence over the motion that's on the table right now, if indeed that is the motion that you're asking.
So we're
Yes.
taking
I make a motion to
472
table
out
this.
of the budget,
We're just tabling it for.
tabling it.
Right.
We can't vote on the budget tonight.
No. That's not what you're asking.
Explain, please.
Okay, what we're going to do is table it to a time certain, which is going to be after we discuss the technology budget.
Okay?
Okay? That's the motion that would be made, is to table Article 25 until we have a discussion and vote
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the technology budget.
Yeah.
Is that the motion that you want to make?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, so we'll,
Opposed?
sorry, opposed? You're opposed, okay. But the motion is still carried, so that motion, this article is on the table right now. It'll be brought back out after the technology discussion.
Thank you.
Article 26. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,000 for the general assistance account.
Move to recommend Article 26.
Second.
Discussion?
Is that enough?
That's, I mean, we did
Don,
that.
is that enough?
That's what we're requesting.
Has it been enough
It had,
this
That's what we're
year?
requesting. We're requesting based on past experience. We have the Raymond Community Assistance
Yeah.
Fund.
What did you spend last year on it? Do you know?
I don't off the top of my head, no.
Don't know.
All told, Raymond Community Assistance Fund, General Assistance, Nancy, do you have an idea?
I know GA was 11,000, I think. That's reimbursed at 50%, so it kind of evens out.
so it's just under the 6,000.
I remember from our discussions that it seemed to be adequate.
Yeah, it's not
It's
a
not
tremendous
big,
amount of
yeah.
money over what we're spending, but it's, I mean, if we thought we were going to spend more, we would have asked for more.
Now, what's
If
that
we thought
money
we were
being
going to
spent
spend
on?
less, we would have asked for less.
What's that money being spent on?
It's being spent to assist people with extreme levels of poverty with basic necessities like housing,
Yeah,
electricity,
yeah.
you know, fuel oil sometimes, but typically we take the fuel oil now, when we can, out of the private funds of the Raymond Community Assistance. So it's for the very abjectly poor for basic necessities, most notably housing.
Is there a criteria that?
Oh, yes, there's
That, you know.
definite criteria
So we're
under
not
main law.
dealing with EBT cards here and, no.
No.
No, it's a little more on the stricter, it is?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
all right. How is it done, Rolf? Do
They
you
have-
know about it, or?
They have to go in, they have to sit down with the appropriate person, go
Yeah,
through
yeah.
the whole,
Yeah.
their whole financial, and then decisions made from there, but at that time also, they'll try and get them into the other programs that they can, including the community assistance program.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's kind of the shot of last resort.
Yeah, all right. I've heard that before too, so, thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay. Article 27. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $180,365 for the technology department account. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second?
Discussion. Brian?
I think it's, first of all, I want to say, I think the town staff has done an amazing job of answering questions, as has the technology committee over the last few weeks. We've spent a lot of time, I know the select board in their deliberations talked about this a lot. We did. This is one that I kind of flagged and have dug into. And I've been really impressed with the speed and efficiency, so thank you, Don, on behalf of all your employees. We did get data back today on some of the usage, and so I'm really torn by this, because I think on one hand, looking at what the select board talked about, Mr. Bruno seemed to think about kind of a middle step, if you will. Ultimately, the select board decided to move forward as proposed. My conclusions are there are some inefficiencies in the way that we do things, not because of the people involved, but because of the equipment. And some of it's historical, some of the way the equipment's been added makes things more difficult. And that's taking more time, therefore, to do the work. So one solution is to become more efficient through incremental technology. That's a very difficult thing at this point to start to think through. And by the way, the detail that I got was amazing. I went to two colleagues of mine who are in broadcast to have them decode part of the information. And for any of you who read the emails, you know how comprehensive they were. My biggest concern here is the concept of building. Well, first of all, let me say one other thing. Our technographer, I don't want to call him a station manager because he's not a station manager, but Dominic does, I think, great work, and I think needs to be compensated for his time, which, as I understand it, currently is not happening. So that, to me, is really job one, that we have to get either one of two things. Either we have to increase the amount of money that he is paid, compensated, or the number of hours. We'll leave the compensation to the side. or we need to figure out a more efficient way for him to do his job in fewer hours. The challenge that we have is that, sorry. No, that's all right. That's all right. I was losing track for a second. The challenge that I have is that by adding a full-time employee, we keep talking, and I heard the numbers a lot of times, we're at, this is a person, we're not adding $35,000, but we're bringing this person up to $35,000. The problem is it's not $35,000. When you add in benefits, you're talking about at minimum 45 and probably closer to 50 between insurance, between the various health benefits these days, all of which are appropriate for a full-time employee. But I don't even look at it as $40,000. I look at it as, because once it's in the budget, it's really hard to get out. Yeah, this is not a one-time thing. Technology, an improvement in the technology and the equipment can be a one-time thing. So I think where I end up is in something which would be recommending a sum for this that would be somewhat lower. I don't think I would necessarily, frankly, go below having this person still be full-time, in which case then the insurance does hold and the like. But that's kind of where my head's at. Thank you for the time.
Steve?
My comment's a little more general. I go back when I was on the planning board, and now I'm going back 15, 20 years. This town was a lot busier back then. We had a lot of developments going in, a lot of shorefront property being developed, and we sat there with a tape recorder. The people showed up at the meeting. We'd have a room full. You had a planning board meeting, and they were going to put a subdivision in your neighborhood. We had the whole town hall room full night after night. We don't have that much building going on in town. Foreseeable future, we're not going to have that much building going on in town. But this price is just going to keep going up and up and up. What's the bare minimum we can run this at? I'm not pointing fingers at, but all this equipment. If anybody walked out back into this bank of equipment, that only lasts a couple of years, and you got to replace it all. I mean, what's the bare minimum we could run this town on? Is it $36,000 to satisfy the state and whatever else we need to document meetings? If we go right to the, what is the minimum we could run this town on? That's my general. This 180 is going to be 220, it's going to be 240. And what was it 6 years ago? A lot less than 180.
There's no legal mandate to do what we're doing. Why we're doing what we're doing is that, I say there's no legal mandate. There's no legal mandate overarching from the state of Maine. What you have is an initiative that the town chose to undertake a number of years ago through a town meeting vote. So we're trying to satisfy that legal mandate. And the selectmen have also found value in the idea of transparency and providing the meetings electronically for people. And so there's I think some pretty astounding statistics about the kinds of throughputs we're getting with people watching these things remotely. I think people are busy. They were busy probably 15, 20 years ago, but a lot of people do check in on the meetings, via the web, via public access television. So it's a conscious choice the town made to provide more content, more and more and more content in this way. And so I want to be clear about that. There's no state mandate. So to answer your question directly, what is the minimum? The minimum is probably not to do it and to reverse course and to say that we want to go back to, the things like tape recorders, like written minutes. There's nothing other than a town meeting reversal probably that you would need to do that. However, I can tell you that the trending that we see, the demands we see, is not that way, but people asking us, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Can I Skype into meetings? Can I do more advanced technology? So we're not getting a demand for less advanced, we're getting a demand for more advanced. Will that be additional equipment and expenditures in the future? It will. Does the equipment go obsolete? It does. Does it go obsolete every 2 years? No. But I think probably every 10 years is reasonable for a lot of that stuff out there. So that's what I would say about it. It is a definite local choice you've made.
But it's also not just for this broadcast studio. You have to remember, our contractor maintains the entire web presence of this town, whether it's email, whether it's the page on the internet. It's more than just the broadcast. I mean, if you want to focus just on the broadcast part, that's probably, I don't know, $40,000-$50,000 ticket. But
Well, it's not, Joe, because if we're talking about the station manager positions 35 plus benefits, you're well over 45 right there.
Right.
Before you have a single piece of equipment that's related to
But
training.
remember, the selectmen, the official minutes of the select board meeting are the video. So
And
you
I
would have to,
conti- and I
you would have to
continue-
change that.
Absolutely.
Now remember, if you want someone to come in here and take notes, you're still paying that person to do that. So-
But if you really want to do it, and I'm not suggesting this because I don't think this is what Raymond wants, you could put a camera in the back, wide shot, record, and you would have what you needed.
And many towns do that on the cheap.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
So there are different ways to go about it. And I mean, that's the part I'm struggling with. I think, to the point that Steve was making, sorry, is it all right if I?
No, I just want to get the discussion going.
Yeah.
Either we do it or we don't do it.
Yeah, I hear you. One of the things that, you make a good point, Mr. Willard makes a good point, that a number of years ago, we voted to do this. And I think the vision that everybody had at that time was, this is going to be amazing, 2 stations, there'll be this educational station, there'll be the public. Educational station doesn't exist. And so, probably most of the reason is because we don't have any volunteerism to do it. The last thing I want to do, and this is where I'm struggling, the last thing I want to do is reduce community activity, engagement in our public affairs and government. And so that's why I'm worried about cutting things or doing something stupid.
Ralph?
Dana?
The whole concept of this building was based on, Brian, a lot of volunteers.
Right.
When it was first enacted. Unfortunately, you and I know how volunteers work, or don't work. We just don't get the the activism that we should. It was proposed to be run by high school students and volunteers, and I mean, we had Sean Carr here for 20-some bucks an hour. Sean did a great job, but that didn't work out. They chose a different route, and we got what we got. But I like the idea of live transmission, even online. But can it be done cheaper? Absolutely. Do we need a full-time employee for this position? Absolutely not. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Other discussion?
I'll just throw my 2 cents in there by saying that the town has made a decision to go forward on this, and I think we need somebody to drive a speeding train.
You voting for it?
I'm going for it.
All right.
The only other comment I would make is, I've had a lot of people contact me in the last couple weeks and express their, the fact that they use those services quite a bit. So, it is, it's a service that we're providing, and when you couple that with the fact that, we used to have the road runner, we don't have the road runner, there's things, there was methods of communication that we used to have which we no longer have for one reason or another.
Get the internet. Get Facebook. Come on. My God. How much more do we need?
May I make one more comment?
Peter was...
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, Peter, apologies.
I use the town website a lot, almost every day.
Good for you.
And when I find something that's out of date in there, I grit my teeth and say, well, they'll catch it eventually. But I'm always interested in seeing what's there, checking board meetings, committee meetings, and everything that's there. So I think it's a very valuable service, and people can, through the internet, if they're from out of state or traveling away, they can sign in and watch a meeting that they missed. I often forget when it gets to be 7 o'clock at night, that there's a key meeting I wished I was watching on Channel 2, on Time Warner. And I miss it, so, but I can go back and get it. And I think it's a very valuable service.
Brian?
I was just gonna make one comment, and I think, because, I wanna honor the information that was gathered. I asked, I believe it was late last night, of the town, just exactly how many people are watching, how many people are using this. And we got some of the responses back today, and so thank you again to the staff for putting it together. But on streaming alone, 1,576 streams of meetings and 4,600 views. And so the numbers, by the way, on DVDs, very low, the utilization of that. But the online part of it and that ability to access, I know that's how I do it, and I know that I'm in that number, makes me think that this is probably worth going forward. Because I don't want to truncate public discourse. So, thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, so that would then take us back to Article 25, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $472,497 for the insurance account. It's already been moved and seconded. So, discussion.
The motion is on the floor
The motion is on the floor at the 472.
to recommend.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Peter?
Is the proper amount of estimated insurance in that to go along with the technology department?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, the big issue that comes up on the insurance side is that the health insurance rates don't get set until the beginning to middle of May for the following year. So we're based on some estimates based on past experience and things like that. So
I have another question on the insurance account,
yes,
if I may. Who do we get our insurance for medical? Who's the carrier? Harbor, yeah. And who's the agent, like?
Cross Insurance.
Cross, okay. Thank you.
other questions? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
We'd like to say we're going to bid this again this year. We bid pretty much every year, so everything's going back out to bid.
So if it's lower, is it gonna?
That's been the intent, yeah.
Article 28. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $92,511 for the community development account.
Move to recommend Article 28.
Second.
Discussion. Dana?
What is $92,511 in the community development account? What do we need that for?
Yes, this is the second time we've answered that question.
Well, you're here for a meeting, why don't you? I don't have my,
I have the list if you'd like me to read it.
my ordinance and charter conversation. So, use of timber harvest funds, what's that all about? We don't even have that money yet.
So that was for the Conseca Road
Yeah.
community, which we I believe.
Yeah. Kineska.
What did I say?
You keep it so
I'm renaming your roads. Sorry, everybody from Kineska. I apologize. I know that.
Yeah, 20K forest, 25
There's
survey.
20,000 coming out of And the timber harvest funds for the community survey.
Yeah. We don't even have the timber harvest funds yet.
It's the best estimate from the forester.
It's a conservative
A
estimate.
conservative
We will
estimate.
exceed that amount.
Unbelievable. All right.
We also don't have next year's taxes or our community, revenue sharing, so a lot of things will be coming in the year
Well,
ahead,
if we
folks.
do a better job collecting our taxes, maybe we'd get them. There's a lot of taxes that are due, so.
Okay. Further discussion?
No, they won't.
All those in favor?
Huh?
He has no clue.
Opposed?
Mr. Bruno, if you want to speak, go to the podium.
No, I'm good right now.
All right.
Okay. Article 29. Article 29, to see if the town, Article 29, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $649,456 for the fire rescue department account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I will be abstaining from this vote.
Okay. Discussion.
Isn't there a vote on that, or is that a recusal? Why? Why are you, could be a reason?
Is this just a,
Don't even.
is this a amendment?
He doesn't have to give you a reason. He's recused himself from it, and the chair accepts that decision. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $15,870 for the animal control account.
Move Article 30.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Article 31, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $21,000 for the infrastructure account.
Move to recommend Article 31.
Second.
Discussion?
Yep. Does that include street lighting?
That's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. We'd do a better job if we could get the lights under control on 302. They're on during the day, so maybe we'd spend less money on lights that are on during the day. The area that includes is from Panther Run to about Main Street, so that area there. They've been on for about a year during the day, so maybe if we could get that under control, we'd save some money there.
You're talking about on 302, not on Main.
Yeah, the special lights, the decorative lights here.
Yeah. For first issue, the decorative lights we're aware of the issues with the decorative lights. We've fought the system. I mean, Nathan, if necessary, can comment, but we are aware of it. We correct the system, then we end up having other issues. We worked with AD Electric.
Yeah.
I would say that we have been plagued with some switching and other problems, circuit breaker issues. So that said, the high efficiency lights, even though we've talked about more efficient lights than that, but this account also takes into account all of the municipal street lights, not just the decorative lights. So point taken. I mean, I wish that we could correct the street lights and make them operate perfectly. I'll work on that.
Thank you.
Other discussion on infrastructure? All those in favor? Opposed? Let's see, okay. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $673,294 for the Public Works account.
Move Article 32.
Second.
Discussion?
Does that still include the 2 additional employees?
The temps?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I can't vote for that. We don't need that.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 33, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $429,177 for the solid waste account.
Move to recommend Article 33.
Second.
Discussion.
The only thing I'm gonna vote for it, when we first started our recycling, we did a fair amount of marketing to get kind of outreach. And I know there's a committee, and I know that they're probably pretty exhausted, and I think they did a great job. But I think also people need to be reminded from time to time about, you know, what single sort means, what can go in there, and the value to the town of continuing. I'd urge that, I think we have some monies that are in there for, not a lot, I know, but for kind of outreach, and 500? You got my keyword over there. So that's enough to kind of get out at least either one mailing or some type of communication to try to help make sure that we get as much out of the garbage stream and into the recycling stream as possible.
Go on the town website, do a lot of things.
Maybe you can stick it in the tax bill.
Yeah.
Eileen Stiles was,
Save you
Is Eileen
one
on
set
it?
of postage.
Eileen Stiles, Phil Hammett, driving forces. Phil's still around. Eileen has left town, but
Right.
moved to Topsom. But I would certainly contact Phil and see what he
Yeah.
would suggest.
Okay. Maybe I'll talk to Phil about it. Volunteer for something like that.
Oh, I said stick it in the tax bill. That's got a stamp on it anyway.
Good point.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's see. Article 34, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $19,260 for the cemetery account.
Move Article 34.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed?
Did you?
Okay.
Yeah, you should have.
Article 35, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate. Okay. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $13,998 for the Parks and Recreation account.
Make a motion. Step.
Second.
Discussion? Brian?
Sorry I didn't get to see all the videos on the meetings I missed. Did we get an answer from Raymond Rattlers as to what they do with their resources?
I don't think we ever did.
They groom trails.
In terms of a detailed financial breakdown,
Yeah.
we did not.
Okay.
I think Nancy made the request, as did Selectman Taylor, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, well then I'd remove that. So how do I make a motion to remove that?
Can you make a motion to amend the amount?
Okay. I'll make a motion to amend the amount, to reduce the amount by $1,600 down to whatever that is. It'd be $12,698, I think.
12,300. No,
Sorry.
1,600.
Yeah, don't ever.
12,398.
$398.
Is there a second?
Question. What's that last number? Where are you getting the 12?
Taking the 16 out. Minus 16.
Oh, I see, I was a total, excuse me.
Is there a second on the motion?
Well, another question,
Wait a minute. Is there a second on that motion?
I second that.
Okay.
I thought there was. Thought we were in discussion.
Well, I first had to get it on the table.
Gotcha.
Okay, so what we're discussing now is the amendment to remove the $1,600.
Okay.
Discussion on that.
Yeah.
No.
The money comes from snowmobile registrations, correct?
Correct.
The snowmobilers that, there's pretty much 3 or 4 people involved in Raymond Rattlers that groom and do everything. And the Raymond Rattlers Snowmobile Club is, you know, it's doing a great job, did a great job with the trails. I don't know if anybody's ridden on their trails. I did this year. And we had snow, so it was groomable snow. they help the local businesses because the trails are groomed up to 302 and stuff, so, for us, to take $1,600 away from that club is it's crazy, but that's my opinion.
Peter?
Yes, sorry, I meant to review the state law that authorizes this, a portion of the registration to go back to the clubs. I remember a year ago, we had some emails back and forth on that. Perhaps Mr. Bruno recalls exactly, but is there a requirement that the town must?
There's no requirement.
Either way, but, okay.
It's tradition. I mean, it's been going on for 30-something years that I remember.
But in response to Dana's comments regarding the club, there are lots of clubs that don't get any money.
We don't take all the car money and give it back to the cars.
No.
I mean, that's that concept. Last year they got $800. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Apologies.
a boat registration.
Right.
Well, they are substantial too. And so even though we can do this, I'm not sure we should. The way it's written, every dollar the town is going to get is going to go to the club. The 1,600.
The snowmobile industry in the state of Maine is a big part of the economy. I don't care which part of the state you live in. If you live in southern Maine and you don't have any snow, you're going to go to northern Maine to snowmobile if you are a snowmobiler. That's basically all I can say.
Well, we certainly can get all those towns in the Worcester County to run the money back to the clubs.
Yeah.
We're pretty much down south here.
Yeah, we can. They're still snowmobiling up there, and we're getting ready for the boating season, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Steve?
My question to Brian, did you bring up that motion for more of accountability issue, or?
For two reasons. One, last year they had $800. This year they have $1,600. So, to me, it begs the question,
What do you do with it?
what do you do with it?
Okay.
And respectfully, if they don't have the resources, the time, or the care, because they've been doing it for 30x years, then I believe that that's not good use of town funds to do that. If they can't justify, we've asked, by the way, it's not, please, I'm not attacking snowmobilers or the economy or anything else that they do, but we asked, I think, all of the other groups the same questions, and each of them came back with a rationale of how they utilize that money. So, another way we could do it, I'll really muck it up, is to keep it at 800, which is what they had last year. But I just don't.
Can't until we dispose.
I know, exactly. That's right. It's good you're chair, not me, because I just mess up my own motions. And if somebody feels that's a more appropriate way, then I will withdraw my motion and we'll go with 8. But I don't see why we should double something, 100% increase, with no understanding of how that money's going to be utilized.
It was based on what they paid in registrations, Brian.
Right, which makes no sense.
Well, wait a minute.
It makes no sense that we should, in my opinion, it makes no sense that we should just give the money back because that's the way we've always done it. If we go with that mentality, then we're going to have
we
a
do
very
the same thing with
it.
milfoil. So, I mean, we charge people up north for milfoil that it's not existing up there, so.
Okay. So we've got the motion on the floor what we're voting on right now is to accept the amendment or not.
And then the amendment is to...
The amendment is to reduce the $13,998 to $12,398.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to withdraw my motion. I'm going to make this really hard for you. I'm sorry about that. I don't want to be punitive here.
Okay.
But I'd like to make another motion.
Okay, well, it first has to be agreed to by Steve.
Oh, you
I'll
second.
withdraw my second.
Okay. So now you want
Mr.
to
Chair, I'd like to make a
another-
motion for a reduction of $800. And I'll let you do the math. So if they would be allocated $800, which is what they were allocated last year. I know they do some very good work, and I know they do trail work, and, but
So you're reducing it by $800?
Correct.
Did you get a second?
And it,
You haven't gotten a second yet.
I haven't come up with what the number is yet. Okay, so you're making a motion to amend the figure to $13,198, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to throw some mud in the water here, please.
In the snow.
Mud and snow, sorry.
Gotta find the snow first now.
We were at $2,000 for these people for 4 years, and then we dropped it to $800. There's a reason we dropped it to $800 from $2,000.
Yes, there was.
And what was that reason? Sorry, Brian.
Because that year they came in and asked for a reduced amount because they had funds held over from the year before because of the bad conditions, so they couldn't go out and groom.
yep.
Okay, so this year, the opposite would be true. They have no good conditions this year. But they never came back in and asked for any money, is that correct?
I think we also had an issue where we over allocated, is that correct, Nancy?
Correct.
Yes.
We received less money than
Correct.
we anticipated. So we reduced the amount.
Reduced it to match. Yeah.
So part of that was, you know, not their problem.
Right. But, I mean, it was
And then-
related, it was also related to the
and-
conditions because
And,
people
you know,
didn't
these
register 'cause there was no
people
snow.
do work on trails that walkers use, the hikers use, bikers use. You know, it's just, this year they had a really good year with snow, and they groomed a lot, and they broke down a lot, and they spent a lot of money. And I'll tell you right now, they're not gonna be left with a whole lot of money at the end of the year. So, to reduce this amount is not the smart way to go. Thank you.
So the motion, what we're voting on now is to accept the amendment. All those in favor?
Alex?
Opposed? Let's see it again. Those in favor of accepting the motion? 3, 4. Okay, the motion is carried.
Wow.
So the motion on the table now is to approve the Parks and Recreation account at $13,198. Or, actually, what it will read is the Budget Finance Committee will recommend $13,198.
That's the new motion?
No, that is the motion. Because by accepting the amendment, that's the motion that's on the table right now. All those in favor? Opposed? And that motion is carried. Okay. Article 36, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $40,500 for the Raymond Village Library.
Move Article 36.
Second?
Discussion?
Yes, please.
Yes.
There was a $500 allocation for a MOU, and I understand that that's been rearranged to an understanding rather than, or to an agreement rather than an MOU. Should this 500 be removed?
No, the structure of the document that will govern the relationship has changed at the advice of council, but the amount of money is still needed. However, we have not...
For legal fees and drafting an agreement?
No, for the services that we're going to provide, and we haven't got to that yet. It's presumed that we will get there. There was a difficulty in scheduling the meeting because we had a storm event on the day of the meeting, and we're trying to reschedule, I think, to get that done. So it's not going to be an MOU anymore. It's going to be a legal agreement, but the amount of money is still needed. Presuming that it goes through, which is what we presume.
What's the legal agreement, may I ask?
What's a legal agreement?
What's the legal agreement that they're looking at?
Do you want to take that one, Mike?
Sure. It's to more formally recognize the services.
Can you
provided.
step up to the podium, please?
I have a microphone.
Oh, you got, all right. He's good? All right.
So, many years ago, the library and the town were in discussions to become potentially a town department.
Yeah.
At that time, the trustees of the library decided they weren't ready for that, and they've stayed independent all these years. There has been a change in leadership and a tremendous growth rate in visitors and attention at the library in the last 18 months to 2 years, and the current trustees are looking to more formalize the agreement. They're looking for help potentially with some of the administrative side of the library. So the agreement outlines a way that the town might be able to help them process payroll, for instance, because we already process payroll, so that may be part of the agreement. That's still in negotiation. If it's possible that they could join, as a library, join our insurances to save money on insurances, that's being looked at as part of this agreement. They would still pay any increase to the town's insurance, but it's probably, if they go on the town's insurance, would be less than if they had to get it independently. So when the lawyers looked at this, they felt that it had to be an agreement if we were ever going to be able to offer this administration help, so that there was a formal arrangement that would allow this to happen. And so that's where we were. Other towns do the same thing with a memo of understanding, but our town was not comfortable by doing it. The select board was not comfortable in doing just a memo of understanding, which is more of a handshake. They felt it was more important to have an actual agreement that spelled it out a little more. So our legal team has reviewed the memo of understanding, has come back with an agreement. It is now in the trustees' hands at the library. They are looking into what that means, and they're ready to have a meeting with Dawn and myself. If we have to wait till it stops snowing, because it snowed again 2 days ago, so hopefully we'll get a meeting in here shortly, at which point we'll answer their questions, we'll get it reviewed, and possibly at some time in the next 2 to 3 months that agreement will come back to the board. The $500 that you're speaking of, Marshall, is a limit on maintenance expenses that the town would help with, also as part of the MOU originally, but the agreement. So if ballasts need to be changed and the town has to buy a ballast, it would go towards that. Those kind of items, so that in the original memo of understanding there was no dollar value put, so that was added because of, I think, your concerns. So that's where we are at this point, with anticipation that if both sides can come to an agreement, that the select board possibly would approve it. There's no guarantee of that.
May I add, please?
Thank you.
The library's been run on its own forever, since ever I moved in town, and they've done a great job. And more, they've been more reliant on town funds. And the growth is there, but there are less kids in town, and the libraries, does a great job. And please don't get me wrong on this, but it's just I think a little less is being done with fundraising on the library's part. They do a great job with that, but they used to rely a lot on fundraising, and I remember when the library came to the select board, when I was on it, asking for $20,000. And now it's up to $40,000. We had one person running the library. We had a lot of volunteers. The volunteers are probably not as prevalent as they used to be, but that's how the library was run back then. And we had one librarian, and all the projects, all the programs were being run with volunteers. And I just wanted to put that comment in because it's gone up in the years. I know it's costing more money to to pay for librarians and stuff, but we still have a small town library, and I think if we go back and remember the volunteers that we used to get and try to get them back, it would be helpful. Thank you.
This past year, the library actually came up with a new fundraiser in addition to the current ones they had established in the past, and that was the garden tour. And that involved a lot of volunteers, and it was very well participated. So the idea that they're not trying to come up with new ideas for fundraising may have been overlooked in some respect. In addition to that, I'd like to say that the library is becoming more and more progressive in terms of program offerings, and you don't see the card stacks anymore. Everything's computerized, and they're trying to stay modern and progressive as well. And it's for those reasons that I will vote for this budget item.
You would like progressive, yeah.
Bro,
Mike?
if I might, in the last year, the capital campaign has not met its goal. They're still about $2,000 short. Their goal was $22,000. However, if you look at their overall fundraising, grants, and programs like Bob meant, the outside money coming into the library is at its highest amount ever. This $40,000 should actually represent a lower percentage this year in the library's programming money than it did last year, because of the increases that they've received from other places. In fact, I highlighted the other day at the select board, there was an anonymous donation of $5,000 recently just to replace the carpet and stuff in there.
That's great.
So if you put that $5,000 and considered it as part of the capital, they would be over what their capital stuff has been. So I just wanted to make sure that as a group, that it's understood that they are doing more than they've ever done from a fundraising standpoint. It's just not all capital campaign. It's a variety of sources. And so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I'd like to add too. Last year I was perhaps a little bit critical on the library, but I will admit that this year they have become much more visible in their fundraising activities, and I appreciate that.
Brian?
Just kind of piling on here, I think the library is one of the most important institutions we have in this town. It really is something that's really special and unique. I personally love the public-private relationship. I frankly wouldn't like it to go to an all-town-owned institution. In other words, a town function. I don't think we need to go there, and I don't think it reflects what Raymond is. I think that the library is a perfect example of how a town like Raymond should act. It has a high level of volunteerism. Danny, you're right. There's maybe not quite as much as there used to be. There's private
It's like the rec
donations.
program.
They're increasing their activity, and I think it's a really, really great example of how public and private can work together and really have something that's really special and unique to the town.
Other discussion?
I say this every year, so I'm going to say it again, and that is, if you looked at the cost of fronting a fully funded municipal library, this is a fraction of that. This is perhaps the best value the town gets for its dollar when you think of the utilization of that building. We can agree or disagree about the future of the library and how much we should fund and whether it should be a town department or continue as a volunteer-driven organization, but I think the fact remains that this is a great institution that gives back to the town in a huge way, has for years, and if you were funding it as a town, it would be $250,000 or more. So that's that's what it's about, and I think as long as it's continuing to function this way and people, you know, are willing to step up and do the hard work, which the library folks are, then it's working. So it's a good value.
I gotta chime in. I'm gonna go back 6 years. I think the library in the last 6 years has taken a good attitude. It's visible. If you don't ask, you don't get. And Mike got on board with the library, about 6, 8 years ago.
Just a couple.
Well, a couple.
For me.
It's been more than that.
I think it's been more than that. It's my,
More.
yeah, it's probably been, anyways, if you don't ask, you don't get. You asked, and you've done well with the money, so.
All those in favor? Opposed? Article 37. See whether the town will vote to carry forward any existing fund balance in the capital improvement program account.
Move to recommend Article 37.
Second.
Discussion.
What was the amount on that? What was the amount on the CIP?
This isn't the CIP, this is the one that allows us to take any that's left in there and move it forward.
From last year?
Yeah.
So that was like 43,000, something like that?
Yeah, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. See if the town will vote to, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,169,658 for the capital improvement account. It consists of Public Works Equipment Reserve, Public Works Construction Bond Final Payment, Public Works Road Construction Bond Payment, Paving Reserve, Municipal Facilities Maintenance and Improvements, the PSB Bond Payment, Fire Equipment Bond Payment, Fire Department Equipment Facilities, Generator for Off-Site, Upservers, Fire Pond Rehabilitation Project, the District 1 Site Distance Project, the Plains Road Pole Barn, Valley Road Communications Tower, and down payment for Engine 2 replacement.
I'll move the article.
For a second,
I'll second that.
discussion.
Yep.
Dana?
Why do we need a new a pole barn? And what's the Valley Road Communications Tower? What's, you know, we got the tower. Is there going to be a building there? I'm just wondering. I mean, some sort of building. Are we going back to dispatching our own dispatch? Danielle's saying no, but
Can we have the chief speak to that? Can we have the chief speak to that?
yeah.
Made it worth coming, Chief.
Bruce
Got
Tuttle,
a chance to get
Fire
out.
Chief. Yes, to answer your question, we purchased a piece of land on the Valley Road that is conducive for a site for a radio tower.
So you purchased the land already?
Correct. We have a radio tower that was
Yeah.
donated to us and facilitated by one of our
Okay.
members and imported from out of state to our town.
Excellent.
We're looking at the Army Corps of Engineers, that project.
Yeah.
Put the tower up, do the facilities, site work, the base for the tower. And to answer the question specifically on a building, there will be approximately
Yeah.
8 by 10 concrete
Yeah.
shelter that will house
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Equipment.
No, we're not going back to our own
All
dispatch.
right. Now, that if that doesn't go forward at town meeting, do you have a backup plan?
The backup plan will be asked for CIP money next year.
That's not acceptable.
That's what the backup plan is.
I mean, why do you have such important, you know, something that important on that can be voted down? Because I think it's important that we get your tower, excuse me, and that communications done. That, I believe, should not be in the CIP. And I don't know why it is. I know that, you know, the selectmen tried to bundle everything up, but we all know what happened on that side of the road with the baby, so.
It will, and it does fit the criteria for a capital project, so therefore that's where I gotta ask.
Yeah, but if it doesn't pass at town meeting, you're SOL.
Well, I mean, the other option
It's
would
crazy.
be, the other option would be to put it into the fire budget, in which case you still could have the same issue, that it could get voted down at the meeting, so whether it's.
No, you could do CIP and not have all these other things that are not necessary, so it's.
Well, yeah, but what you're saying there is they can't change an amount on the CIP, you know, at the town meeting. They could always vote to use a different amount rather than the 1169. They could, you know, they could use.
Well, no, they're actually separated, so they could say, Valley Road Communications Tower, don't want that, $118,000.
But if you had that in the, if you had it in the fire rescue budget, it still would be identified there, so you know, you'd have this, you're at the same risk either way.
I'm just worried about, worried about that part of his, you know, the rest of the stuff on there, I don't think we need, but the communications tower, we need.
And I think that any item within that could be voted out at that's the risk of town meeting.
Yeah, and it's crazy. That's why I don't like our Article 38.
Bob?
I kind of spoke to this previously in the fear that some people may determine some of these projects to be fluff, and that as a whole it's not worth our investment, and would have preferred to break it up in a certain manner. You know, we're looking at Article 38. Article 38 will also affect down the road when we get to it, Article 40.
Yeah.
Article 44.
44.
You know, and to have this article bunched like this, it really brings concern to me. And any of these items are important to any amount of the residents of the town of Raymond. You're looking at the chassis down payment for the Engine 2 replacement vehicle, and you know that's good. We're going to be looking at that again further down the road. I understand these are all CIP projects, and it's not the desired way I would have liked to see them addressed in a group like this.
Especially for something as high profile as a communications tower that we need. We need that. And, you know, whether it's on Raymond Hill or Pismire Mountain, I don't care where it is, but we need it, so.
Marshall?
On these 4 IRT expenses, the fire pond, the District 1 site distance, those 2 appear to be one-time costs. Is that correct? Okay. No, you can just nod your head, that's fine, okay. The pole barn, that's not a one-time cost. That's seed money for,
It's a one-time cost.
it is a one-time cost.
Yeah, sure.
And the Valley Road, I know, is a one-time cost.
Yeah.
Okay, so these, there may be other things appearing later on, but these 4 categories won't, is that correct? Okay. Okay, there'll be maintenance issues on the tower, I'm sure, and stuff like that.
Yes.
But once we're done with these 4 IRT issues here, we're done. Okay. Thank you.
I'm just worried about it, Marshall, being voted down overall
I
at town
fully
meeting.
understand that, Dan, I'm not trying to set up an argument, I just wanted to clear it in my own head.
And I understand that.
These are
but,
done, yeah.
You know, there's certain things on this list that are priorities, and certainly there are some that are not.
Mike?
Marshall, I might be able to clarify just a little bit. Originally, for the IRT projects, we were looking at a single bond.
I understand that. I understand.
Oh,
that
you do
one.
remember,
Yeah,
and then we were looking at
yeah.
interest payments and then
And frankly, I'm okay with cutting these out like these.
yeah, we just,
Because it's one time.
we swapped interest for funding
Yep.
as opposed to bonding,
Yep.
so. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's just gonna take us, I won't say us, but someone to really sell this article, maybe a special article in the paper, or, I don't know, to stress the importance of each of these individual items, if you may. Because that is a big number, you know, 1,169,000, and, if all of these things that I go through, I think we need to sell it.
I think it should be on a ballot myself, but I don't think the Valley Road Communications Tower should be part of that. It's something that we all, you know, we need, so. We bought the land, you know, we gotta go forward and continue this project and make sure that the you know, the citizens of Raymond are on this end of town are you know, taken care of if there's a problem. So that's it's, you know, to me that's a big issue. So
I mean,
we've been fighting towers in Raymond forever, but you know, for a tower to be used for emergency purposes. You know, I don't care where, you know, we gotta look at the need, so, it's,
one of the things you have to remember is the accounting on this is we have a capital improvement project account. These are all fall into that ledger account. That's how we do it. That's how it's broken up in this town. So, you want to break it out separately, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's still the same account.
It's still gonna roll back into that account.
That same account, exactly.
but you know, the thing is, we sold a tower for 900,000 and we want to build another one for 118,000 and, you know,
Such a deal.
well, where's the money that we,
Two
you know?
separate issues.
Well, no, it's not. It's
Yeah, but they're
it was put in. It was put in surplus. Let's use the surplus for
We
that.
didn't sell a tower.
Well, yeah, we sold an easement for a lot of money. So, and
Okay,
so
so, other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Oh, now the fun one. County tax. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $617,503 for the county tax account.
Move to recommend Article 39.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
begrudgingly. Never vote for county tax.
Let's see, Article 40, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the total sum of $1,917,470 from estimated non-property tax revenues to reduce the property tax commitment together with all other categories of funds which may be available from the federal government and any other sources. This includes the $32,000 from the TIF reserve.
Move to recommend Article 40.
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor? Opposed? Article 41, to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to accept or reject grants, donations, and/or gifts of money to the town of Raymond and to expend monies donated for specific purposes.
Move to recommend Article 41.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
I just want to add on that, I hope we get a lot of donations and gifts.
The more the merrier. Article 42.
I just had to.
To see if the town will vote to accept certain state funds as provided by the Maine State Legislature during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2014, and any other funds provided by any other entity, including but not limited to municipal revenue sharing, local road assistance, emergency management assistance, snowmobile registration money, tree growth reimbursement, general assistance reimbursement, veterans exemption reimbursement, state grants, or other funds.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Steve?
Oh,
Oh.
I'm sorry, I thought we were gonna vote on
He
it.
was, he was,
Write it down.
Jumping on.
all those in favor?
Now it's done.
Opposed?
Carry discussion.
Motion is carried. Let's see. Article 43, to see if the town will vote to increase the property tax levy limit of $2,221,087 established for the town of Raymond by state law by $500,000 for a total levy limit of $2,721,087, or, $2,721,087.
This is just, oh, sorry, is it?
Yep.
Sorry, you need a motion first,
Yeah.
right?
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Marshall, okay. Yes, Brian?
So this is the overage of LD1, is that correct?
SD1
Okay.
override, right.
For this year and to cover the anticipated for next year when you get some, bond activity,
Oh, okay.
new bond activity.
How much, oh, go ahead, Bob.
Well, they didn't recognize it yet.
Bob?
Does this number have to change, seeing how we adjusted Article 35 and did not make a recommendation on Article 10?
No. Because it's still, if the town meeting changes things, then it might have to. But,
Then,
because there's still a recommendation at a, at a different level.
correct.
So you have to look at the maximum exposure, so that has to cover you under the maximum. If the town meeting were to lower items, that could be lowered. Peter?
I remember last year we were having a discussion on this and on education at one point, but I can't remember it. There seemed to be difference in wording. One wording, it affected 1 year, and the other alternate wording, it went on forever. Is this? Which is this?
This is forever.
This is,
Forever.
This
Okay.
is for the future. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Marshall?
What's the mill rate impact of a $500,000 increase? Is it $5? Right,
No.
$5 per thousand?
30 cents.
It doesn't, just because you're raising the LD1 levy limit, doesn't mean you're going to spend that much.
Oh, I understand that,
Yeah.
but if we spend it all,
Yeah.
it would be
$32
$32 per thousand.
$32,000?
Is that what I'm hearing?
30 cents something.
This year it's estimated at 30 cents on the mill rate.
Okay, thank you.
But when you add, you got bonds coming off, bonds coming up.
Right.
But in order to go by the law, there's a maximum point that we have to cover by law.
Well, how much money are we taking out of surplus? Exactly, do you know, or?
Net revenue.
And the reason I ask this is
$428,000.
$428,000 out of surplus, which we've been staying away from for how many years now, Mr. Bruno? 4 years?
Now, but we're using that money to invest in
Invest,
some capital improvement projects. That's what most of that
but,
money's
so, okay. So we're
Yeah.
taking from the surplus again,
Well,
which we did not do for a long time, which increased our ability to get great bond rates.
No.
Well, yeah, it did, because our surplus was,
I got the answer.
it was, I'm glad you do, Mr.
Yeah, it's a very simple thing.
yeah,
Here's the
yeah.
deal. What was being done before was to use the surplus to reduce the tax rate.
Yeah.
When a more prudent strategy would be to use it for major non-recurring
Yeah.
capital improvements. So that's what's being done. And so I think that, to the contrary, the raters at Standards & Poor would probably look at that favorably, not negatively.
Yeah. But, you know, when it came time to set the mill rate, we always recouped that mill rate, what we took from the undesignated fund balance.
Two
We always
different
recouped
things.
that. So it was you know, a wash, and it was a gimmick, and
Right,
but,
it's not the same thing.
well, yeah, it is, Joe. I mean, we
Plus-
worked so hard to stay away from taking away from the surplus, and you were part of that, and I commend you for that. And I thank you for that. And I mean, you worked hard for it, and you got us there. You set the limit, and now we're taking almost $500,000, $450-some thousand.
It's two different things. We were artificially suppressing the mill rate last time by using undesignated fund balance. This, we're taking money out to fund capital improvement projects. We're not suppressing the mill rate by using undesignated fund balance. It's two different things. The other thing that we're doing here is we have a policy, the select board has a policy saying that we won't have you can grow your undesignated fund balance to $3 million, but what's the purpose in doing that? You're just overtaxing people. So we have a policy saying we're not going to make it more than, I think, 15% of the municipal budget that we keep in the undesignated fund balance. We still are going to have close to $1.9 million in that undesignated fund balance, when by our own policy we only need 1.68, somewhere in that range.
Correct.
So you know, it's not like we're just taking money out and just throwing it around and doing nothing with it. We're investing in projects that need to be done, that have been put aside for years and years and years, and now we have the cash to do it, so we're doing it.
Mr. Chairman, what does the auditors recommend for the undesignated fund balance? No offense to the select board, and I'm an august former member. However, I don't believe I saw any of the financial acumen of a CPA and an auditor. So, number one, that's
You're
my
not taking
first
comments from the floor right now.
You are taking comments
No,
from the
I'm
floor.
taking
because
comments.
these men here,
A question was asked
these
to the select
individuals
board.
have been making comments. They are citizens, they are not select persons.
They
so
are.
I've asked a question, Mr. Chairman, according to the precedents you have set. So
I've
please
said-
answer me that, or do you not want to give the answer to the public?
The public is entitled to look at the audited report, which they get every year,
I'm
and
asking
it's
you
in
the
there.
question. Do you know what the auditor recommends
Correct.
for the undesignated fund balance?
I don't have the specific
I
figure off
didn't
the top
think
of my
so.
head.
Thank you.
Fine.
I didn't
You've
think
had
so.
your little hissy fit, now you can sit down and be quiet.
That's a personal attack, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
thank you.
And we try to shun that in this town.
You do? Thank you.
Yes, I do. You can
Okay.
ask all the attorneys. I'm very good at it. So you don't know, Mr.
Okay, you've made your point, your time is
Does the
up, thank
finance
you.
director
Your
know?
time is over, thank you.
No, it's just begun. Thank you. I didn't.
If I can come in here, and I've got 25 years' experience in the banking business, and I can tell you, looking at situations like this, too much cash is a detriment. You're not using your assets correctly if you've got a bunch of money in the checking account.
Mr. Bullock, do you know what the audit?
You are not addressing members of the
I
board.
didn't think so.
Would you stop addressing members of the board?
I will.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 44. Shall the town approve a capital project bond at an estimated cost of $850,000, $600,000 for the salt and sand building, $250,000 for the replacement of engine 2. Appropriate a sum not to exceed $885,000 to fund the cost of the program, including the cost of issuance, and to fund said appropriations and authorize the treasurer and the chairman of the board of selectmen to issue general obligation securities of the town of Raymond, including temporary notes in anticipation of the sale thereof, in an aggregated principal amount not to exceed $885,000 and the discretion to fix the dates, maturities, interest rates, denominations, redemptions, places of payment, forms, refunding, and other details of said securities, including execution and delivery of said securities on behalf of the town of Raymond, and to provide for the sale thereof, is hereby delegated to the treasurer and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Is there a motion?
Move to recommend Article 44.
I'll second.
Who seconded that?
Me.
Marshall. Discussion.
Yep.
Dana?
Why do we need a new salt and salt building? And, you know, I just can't understand why we need that. There are things, I mean, it looks like something that came out of Augusta, a bill that, you know, John Martin and whoever created, but they bundle all these things, and some are needed, some are not. And we're asked to approve an article that includes all these things, and I know for a fact our sand and salt building it's fine. It's been serving us for years. I went down and looked at it today. It looked pretty good. I just can't understand why we need to spend that kind of money on a new building. And I know you know, it's all about the, you know, the Boy Scout thing and using the, you know, the government and all that, but we don't need a new building down there. It's fine. It's been serving us for quite a few years, and it's got a few years left, and you know, I just can't see why we bundle all these things in Article 44. And again, there are things in this article that should go through and some that should not, and I fear that bundling stuff like this at town meeting might say, you know, people are going to say no. And, you know, I'd like to have an explanation why we need a new sand and salt building.
Brian?
Yeah, I agree.
We'll get to that.
I agree with Dana on this one. I don't understand how these things are together. They're totally different. I don't know what we can do about it at this point, but I think it makes it very difficult for the public to say, I'm willing to pay for that and I'm not willing to pay for that. So, couldn't agree with him more.
Well, I think the reason that, you know, there was some bundling was to be able to break it into two different bonds. And, but
If you break it into two different bonds, you pay two different fees. One bond issue is one fee.
Why couldn't you vote on the two components and ultimately create a single bond?
Probably could.
Yeah, exactly.
There are also some timing factors involved here as well.
I still don't understand why the people of the town can't look at these things individually and then you roll them up to create the bond.
Do you want to explain, do you want to know about the need,
yes.
Nathan?
We were asked at the beginning of the budget, as it was pointed out, to come up with a list of stuff that we thought we needed. The sand salt building has been an item that's been on the back burner for many years. The one we have right now will hold about half of the capacity of the sand that we use in the winter. It's a very inconvenient and time-consuming in the middle of the winter to stockpile sand. You end up with a lesser product. And this is going to give us a capacity to stockpile the entire winter's average use of sand in one building. The other building, we're going to use half of it for storage and the other half for salt, straight salt. And that's basically it.
What we try to do, of course, when we are in the off-season is to make a deal and try to find a good value on sand and salt. You might imagine the worst time to, you know, seek winter-related products is in the winter.
Brian?
Nate, what was our sand and salt 5,000 cubic yards this year? I mean, I consider this to be a pretty heavy winter, so.
We were at, before this last storm, at 5,600 yards.
Okay. Thank you.
Dana?
Well, you know, I know a lot of people in the business of sanding and stuff, and they can buy their product in January, February. They can buy it any time of the year.
We can buy it any time
yeah.
of the year, but it's
Yeah, and you don't have to stock it. You buy it and it's there. So it's, I mean, the sand salt building, Nate, it's been there for how many years now?
It was built in 1989.
Yeah, and how many extra miles of road have we added to our plowing?
It was at half capacity when they built it.
I mean,
and at the time they built it, the state was offering up the money to build them.
Yeah.
And that's all that we could get for money at the time.
We've never had a problem with sand and salt ever. I mean, I noticed that you had a pile on the side that you brought in, and that wasn't mixed in with salt, obviously.
Correct.
And you know, that's fine. You can always do that, and that's in accordance with the DEP because there's no salt in it, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, this building's been treating us well for a lot of years, and it's still in great condition. You repaired the backside where it collapsed, and I mean it's still a great building. And
I'm not judging the condition of the building or saying the building's bad. This is a convenience item. It helps us out. You're able to stockpile mix. You don't have to worry about it in the middle of the winter. If we stockpile in the winter, we have to get a screener down there to screen the frozen chunks out because that sand outside will freeze. This winter we were dealing with about 3 feet of frost in the middle of it. That generated the problem. The loader we had down there couldn't bust through it, so we had to get a bigger loader in to do it. Our contractor that we hired to supply our sand this winter ran into the same problem. It's inconvenient to haul winter sand in the middle of the winter.
You know, it's funny that you say that, but when I went down there and got some sand, I took it out of the sand pile that
after we broke into it. Yes.
I used a shovel, so it's
well,
I didn't need a 640 or a Caterpillar to break through it. So you know,
didn't last very long either.
Well, no, you know, you're better off with salt, but you know, that sand, that big sand pile, I could have broken that with my 750
You couldn't
John
once
Deere.
before after we broke into it. You could.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bob?
I just want everyone to remember the type of winter we had and how many municipalities.
It was a wonderful winter.
I'd like to finish. How many municipalities actually ran out of salt and sand, and then at that point had to bring it in at a premium price. I'd rather buy it bulk at a good price than have to resort to buying it at a premium price.
I agree with you. And just pile it up like they did last year. That's what they did. They piled it up in a great big pile. And it worked great.
Okay.
No, nobody suffered this winter.
Okay. Other discussions? All right. All those in favor? Opposed?
I'd like to clarify my position. I'm opposed because I'd like to see these issues divided. That's the only reason I'm opposed. I think we need the salt and sand. I think we need the engine too. So I'm opposed for that reason. It should be divided.
I agree with you, Marshall. Thank you.
Okay, so what we have now, we can either make a new motion to make no recommendation.
No, it's been voted on.
What was voted on was this article to approve it, or to approve it was defeated.
Yep.
So now that motion is closed. So now you either are, you have a choice of, you can make a recommendation not to approve, you can make a recommendation to do something different. But right now, you're back to nothing there.
Do we have time to send this back to the selectmen and have it reconsidered?
It's a waste of time.
We're meeting on Tuesday night to vote on the warrants.
So the question, I guess, would be whether it could be restructured as individual articles, but back into the bond, which I think it probably could be. A little more complexity.
Yeah.
44 and 44A.
I don't know, I guess we could
Well,
talk
what
about
you,
how to structure
well,
it. That's
no,
a-
what you would do is you would actually make two new articles. One which would be for the salt and sand building, one which would be to approve the replacement of engine 2, and then you have a third article, which is to bond for what's approved in those, so you have a maximum level on the bond. So you can only put in there what's been
Change the
approved,
numbers
right?
following.
So you'd have to have new recommendations on the individual articles for the individual expenditures, and then another new article for the bond that would combine the two. Right?
If the, if that's what, if that's where people's heartburn is they want the two, they want it individually approve the salt building, they want to approve the engine.
Well, you're putting the fire department up against, you're creating a, something that shouldn't even be here in this article, because you're putting up an article that involves the public works department and the fire department. And, you gotta look at the, what the people of this town want and need, and you're putting them all in one article, and it's just not, it's not the right way to do it. It's,
Look, can I respectfully disagree just a hair on this one. The reason I'd like to see it divided is because I think we've already committed through the $75,000 expenditure to replace engine 2. But I think, and somebody on that end of the table said, maybe the town doesn't want the sand and salt mine. And I think the townspeople should be given the opportunity to say yes or no on that particular item. I believe that they're both bondable and should be bonded.
Well, I mean, if you turn down the salt shed for 600,000 and you're only looking at 250,000, there's a good chance you're not gonna bond that and go try and find the capital money somewhere.
Exactly.
Because you're not gonna pay $35,000 for a $250,000 bond.
Right.
You're not gonna do that.
Right.
well, no, you use undesignated funds and pay for it, like we did before with a dump, with a plow truck. Pay for it. That's what I would do.
So we have, there's the options on the table right now is to either make a recommendation that, we actually split the article.
I'll move that article as split.
Which then would say that so we're recommending either recommending up or down the salt sand building, recommending up or down the engine as a split approval on there. Then, if those are both approved, then you can go into the, do you bond it or not?
But how can the townspeople vote? I mean,
Because
unless
They
it's
can hold the
restructured.
bonds.
No, the only warrant that's gonna appear is what the selectmen vote.
Right.
Your recommendation would be, we recommend splitting this article into two things. And we recommend the salt shed, we recommend the fire truck. Or you could say we don't recommend the salt shed, and we don't recommend the fire truck. But this is the warrant that's gonna appear on the town
Okay,
meeting.
so ultimately then, the townspeople won't be able to do what essentially the budget finance is asking for, which is.
Yeah, they
which
can
is
come out and say,
And they could reduce it by
they
that
can
amount.
reduce it by whatever amount that is.
Yep.
The other thing I suppose that could happen would be, if you wanted and the selectmen allowed it, I mean, you could put some sort of an explanation to help the public understand your vote.
Why don't the selectmen change the article? That'd
Because we
be,
don't have to.
well, it'd be the easiest thing to do, right?
No, but we can,
If we vote on it and, and say we want it split, I mean, you guys can meet next week and say, let's go with it or not. I mean,
Right.
all right,
Doesn't mean we have to.
well.
I mean, we could, you know,
Exactly.
what we can do, you know, I mean, what we can do is we can recommend, you know, we can have a motion that recommends individually the salt and shed and the engine. Then it's up to the, you know, then it's gonna be up to the town, you know, I mean, you know, that article can remain as it is, because now they have our recommendation, which is, okay, we're recommending this individually and this individually, so that in the event that one is dropped out, they have our recommendation.
Could we make a recommendation that the Budget and Finance Committee recommends that sand and salt building be approved or unapproved independently of the fire department's request, and if both approved, combined into a bond?
Yes?
So moved.
That's what, okay.
So that's what'll be written in.
That's what would be written in under
Into
our
the-
recommendation.
okay.
So can you,
But
say
at
it
town
again?
meeting, can someone actually, I guess could someone make a
Absolutely.
motion? No, because it's the way the they can
No,
make a motion to
abso-
say, I wanna
absolutely they
vote
can.
on them separately?
Yes.
That works then.
You can't vote on, no, you can't
No.
vote on them separately.
Oh,
You would make a motion to reduce the
Reduce
warrant.
Okay.
by that amount.
got it. Not
Then
quite as
can
clean.
somebody from the floor make a separate motion, Joe? To add something in? If there's not a warrant article with it, they can't, right?
No.
So if
It's
it's
only
reduced,
one.
it's done.
So that's how you would essentially vote on, if you wanted to separate them as an individual and vote on it, then somebody makes a motion, and then there's somebody makes a motion for a reduction based off of what they think shouldn't or should be included.
And then the other thing goes
That
away,
works.
because it can't be added to a warrant.
This one may need a little bit of explanation to the townspeople.
Well,
So
I
so-
don't think we should have ever been put in this position to begin with, but, you know.
So the amendment that's on the floor right now, which I'll need a second to it, but is that the Budget Committee recommends the salt and sand building and the engine rebuild. If they are both approved, then to bond.
No.
And to
No.
issue one bond.
No.
Issue one bond. That's the
That would be
motion
the
that you're making.
recommendation of the Budget Finance Committee.
That's the motion
I
the
thought that
amendment
was
that you're
already
offering.
defeated.
It's already
Wasn't that
given.
motion already defeated?
Yeah, it has.
So this is a new motion on that article.
Can you repeat it, please?
The motion is for the Budget Finance Committee to recommend individually the salt and sand building and the engine individually. And if they are both, and if approved, that they would be combined into a single bond.
I'll second that motion.
I think we need to put the words considered individually.
Individually.
Considered. My motion, your second.
Yes.
Just a point of clarification, there is not enough money in the undesignated fund balance to fund that amount of money for the fire truck solo.
There is, it would just go below where we think it's a healthy fund balance.
Okay, so yes.
And then you would have to replenish it by raising the mill rate.
And you probably would do nothing to help your bond rating.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a lousy reason to bond, because we have to get to a big enough number to bond.
That isn't what I said.
No, I'm saying that's my view on it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I totally understand your view.
You know, or you look at alternate funding on that, and go to the municipal instead of bond so you're not paying the big fees.
Well, you still gotta pay
You're
fees.
gonna
Yeah,
pay
you're
a fee,
gonna
but
pay,
it's-
you're gonna pay it in the higher rate, but
Yeah.
yeah, right.
so,
you do that.
You know, that avenue exists as well, so.
Assuming the timing works, that's the other problem with the Maine Municipal and the IRT, trying to dovetail those together.
Yeah.
This isn't simple,
No.
trying to make this all work. It's, truly a one-time opportunity to get some capital work done at a very favorable rate.
Okay, so that's the motion we have on the floor
Whether
right
we
now.
need it or not.
Can you read it one more time before? What the motion is, I apologize.
The motion
Make sure I
is
got
the
it.
Budget Finance Committee is recommending the salt and sand building and the replacement engine considered separately. And, you know, recommends those, but considered separately. And if they are approved, be combined into a single bond.
So I don't know how we do this, Mr. Chair, but I think we have to vote on these things individually then as a committee.
So there's 3
Because then we'll have considered,
3 votes.
them.
No, because
separately. You're making the assumption that we're in favor of both, the way that I heard that being read. And I think you're probably right, but I think we need to vote it. Sorry to make this as difficult as it is, but I think this is really important. This is our job as the Budget Finance Committee, is to be that sounding board.
I think it's great that you're having this discussion. I really do, But, I mean, I think it's also important you realize that it's not just a sand salt building. It's gonna be used for storage too, is that right, Nate?
The old building,
Right, so it's not just this big sand salt building you're building. You invest in all this capital and equipment and you leave it outside in the elements.
What's the pole barn for then?
The same thing.
We have a lot of equipment between public safety, public works, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars of equipment that's outdoors. And if you go back in history, I was around when that 1989 deal came around. So the towns had to choose if they wanted to upscale the grants. Some towns didn't even get grants because of timing, but apparently what Raymond did was they took the grant, built the small building to satisfy the state law, which was to keep the sand and the salt out of the groundwater. The state wasn't building you buildings because they wanted you to have a nice building. It was an environmental initiative. So Raymond apparently, if I'm hearing Nathan right, built what they could build with the small amount of money the state gave them and didn't build the adequate building, so they satisfied the law but not the need. If you assume you need to put them undercover. A lot of towns said, hey, we've had piles with open piles of sand and salt forever. It's okay.
Can't do that anymore.
Right.
How come on Article 44, I guess the question to
And we're
the
not
select
doing
board, IRT is never mentioned?
There's no
IRT there.
What?
They're not
It's not an IRT program.
Well, I just heard that it
Oh,
wasn't mentioned.
sand and salt is not IRT. I thought, I misunderstood. I didn't think it was, and I
Pole
thought,
barn
I
is
heard it was.
pole barn
The
is.
pole barn is, I recognize.
I'm sorry if I get those confused.
Well, you know, everything's bundled up. That's what's confusing about it, you
that's
know.
not, that wasn't my question.
That's my error.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, so, what I'm hearing is a request for an amendment.
Well, why don't I withdraw my motion as presented
Okay.
for the time being? And then make a motion that we consider approval of the sand and salt building as an individual item.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
I would like to make a motion that the replacement for engine 2 at the expense of $250,000 be considered as an individual item.
Second.
Be recommended as an individual item.
Recommend as an individual item. Freestanding, if you will.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
This time I would like to,
Brian. Okay, so then the third part of it is, so now we go back to the actual motion under the
recommendation.
the actual recommendation under Article 44, which is the Budget Finance Committee recommends individually the salt and sand and the engine and if approved by the voters, be combined into a single bond.
Second.
What just happened? Really, nothing's changed.
Nothing's
It's been
changed
the
except we
original motion.
voted, we looked at them
We
individually.
looked at them individually.
But
Yeah.
So you're making a recommendation individual.
Individual. It may just seem like, but it's not.
Spoken
Not
word.
in my opinion.
Okay, so that was seconded.
Same output, same outcome.
Okay.
individual.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, Article 45.
Who's doing the minutes on that one?
Hopefully the video.
Shall the town,
Hopefully the video gets that right.
shall the town approve a community parks project bond at an
Thank God we have
estimated
a
cost
video.
of $782,000, appropriated sum not to exceed $817,000 to fund the cost of the program, including the cost of issuance, and to fund said appropriations, authorize the treasurer and chairman of the Board of Selectmen to issue general obligation securities of the town of Raymond, including temporary notes in anticipation of the sale thereof, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $817,000, and the discretion to fix the dates, maturities, interest rates, denominations, calls for redemption, places of payment, form, refunding, and other details of said securities, included execution and delivery of said securities on behalf of the town of Raymond, and to be provided for the sale thereof is hereby delegated to the treasurer and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Move not to recommend Article 45.
Second?
Discussion.
Aye.
Marshall?
I have questions on this. If this goes through, have we looked at what I would call maintenance and management issues on day 366? What's going to happen to the town once this goes through? And I bring that up because I'm very familiar with athletic fields in other areas, and I know they can be very expensive to maintain.
Right,
So have we looked at
we've
that
looked at
issue?
that and we've come up with some preliminary estimates, but the key to whether they're expensive or less expensive is in the design. Having built a facility almost identical to this, and having had initially not the best soil and turf management design, having to go back in after and to correct that with some soil scientists, a lesson well learned. But so to get, you know, a well draining field that also can grow grass and is, you know, able to withstand the tough clay that these facilities get. So initially I would tell you that the design is going to be very, very important, and we're going to pay particular attention to that and make sure we get that right. But that said, I mean, it's this large piece of property that's going to have to be mowed and maintained and will need incidental repairs and patching and other things. It's not going to be free, but the question will be whether the voters, you know, see the value in having such a facility, which is not an uncommon type of facility for a town to have. We think it's an integral facility to, you know, to the attractiveness of the community moving forward. But I don't want to minimize. There is going to be some maintenance, and we did work those numbers up.
We
Nate?
have the final numbers on it. We're still waiting for square yard, square measurements of the fields.
Okay, but we had some order of magnitude, what you felt were going to be your costs.
I don't have those numbers.
Don't have them with you, okay, but the answer is we have looked at that, yes.
Okay, the other question would be the management part. Who is going to oversee this? Is this the town? Are you going to
Well,
shove
we
it down
would
Raymond
envision
Rec,
we would
or-
envision that the Raymond Rec, there's a lot of excitement amongst the Raymond Rec folks
I'm
and
sure there is.
and volunteers related to the various programs about this. So we don't envision, you know, establishing a recreation director or recreation formal program funded by the town, but we do envision maintaining it as a town.
The other thing is this number 4.3 million hits me right in the head, and I'm not sure you can call that a value of 4.3 when the costs were 4.3. You can spend 18 million on a Chevrolet. It's not worth 18 million. I don't know how that 4.3
Yeah,
got in
that
there.
number was provided by the military, by the Pentagon.
Okay.
So that's a
and-
federal number, and I would tend to agree with you to some degree, but we had to put a number to it. So we decided to go to the source and get a number.
And my last issue is this is not on the tax rolls. This is town-owned land, this is
Correct.
not
It's
taxable property.
not taxable property.
There's no income generation from this
Correct.
other than a concession stand or something.
And even further than that, not only is there no income generation because of the nature of this property, which is adjacent to a closed municipal landfill, we do not believe there's any risk to, groundwater contamination because we have monitoring wells, which we've monitored historically. We've done investigations. That said, this particular property was once proposed as the site of a major subdivision project. The selectmen felt that was too great a risk, even with good groundwater quality. A lot of towns have made the mistake and allowed such developments to go forward. The selectmen several years ago decided that was not a good risk. They negotiated a very attractive price for this 83 acres, and so it's land that not only is not on the tax roll, but that's the commitment the town made when it purchased it. It will never be developed into residential properties. The risk is too great to the town, should that landfill ever cause a contamination issue.
My last question is, how much are we invested already into this project? Minimal? Are we minimal?
100,000.
Nancy, do you have that number?
No, the selectmen approved,
Danielle?
27,000.
Yeah, well, the original price was what, 100,000?
yeah, the land was 100, but in this project, we approved that.
She said 27.
27.
It was 27, but that also included engineering on some other stuff, so it's part of that 27.
15.
Yeah.
How's that
I'm all
engineering
set, Ralph.
coming?
Thank you.
Is that available to the public, or?
They haven't gone out and done anything yet. They're waiting to do their vernal pool study,
Yeah,
which should happen
yeah.
in the next couple of weeks, but they've done nothing yet.
So why don't we wait and see what happens there, and maybe vote on it another year? I mean,
We need to give the IRT folks
yeah, well,
notice.
yeah, that's right.
Well, I
This is-
mean,
this is-
vernal pools have to be studied in a certain time period.
Yeah.
Which is now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because
water in 'em.
it's
Now's the
wet.
time
It's
for
wet.
vernal pool.
Yeah, it's
So
wet.
if you pull the plug on it, you
Yeah.
can't study it. So that's your dilemma here.
Yeah,
Yeah. And some people have said, why not take a number of years and put together a committee and study it and see if it's something that we really want or need, and that's a great idea.
yeah,
If you could get the military
they will
in
come
several
back.
years,
yeah.
and you can't. So it's a compressed timeline. So the idea at some level is to give the voters the opportunity to weigh in on this immense opportunity. Now they may say, no, this is not something we want or value or need, but you're giving them the opportunity to take advantage of this one-time deal. And I can tell you that if this is something that the community values, wants, needs, wants to go forward with, this is a fractional cost of what it would cost us to ever do it ourselves. That's the whole nut on this, really.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
And to dither is to the end. That's it.
Steve, you had it? No, I'll come back to you, Dana.
I understand the value that you are looking at it to a way, but I don't know. Volunteer recreation to run this place? No, it's not gonna happen. You're saying 3 to 4 fields. I mean,
It's what we have now.
what?
It's what we have now.
Right. We're talking at a big scale.
Yeah, I've successfully done this in another town, and it's as he says, it's what we're doing right now with private fields, privately owned fields.
That's how mechanical
One-
Poland operate. They-
One privately owned field.
One large privately owned
Yeah,
field
yeah.
with multiple fields.
Yeah, yeah.
Mechanical.
You know, the only private fields that we are using are Camp Agawam. And I'd like to thank them for that. It costs us $2,000 a year, and they mow it. And they allow us to use the facility 8 weeks, roughly, a year for soccer. The other fields in town are all public, the 2 schools, and then Mill Street. Now, Mill Street's got, I noticed they had some poles set up for lighting. We haven't finished that yet, and we want to take on another project that, you know, that I understand, you know, you get the Army helping out, but even if the Army helps out, you know, we have to look in the future and say, once the Army bugs out, we're going to be like Baghdad, man. You know?
I think you make one good point in there for me, and that is the $2,000 point. You know, I think you made a point at other meetings that you know, was an excessive amount of money for what.
Well, it's not. I was
That's
trying
what I'm
to
saying,
get-
if it's $2,000 to maintain it, mow it.
No,
like
I
that
was just
number.
trying, Mr. Willard, I was just trying to get
like the
that,
number.
I was trying to get that fee waived by Agwam. I wasn't trying to cut it
That's-
from the
we actually
budget.
Okay.
went for that, too.
Peter?
That's what our contract was.
Yeah.
Peter?
Yeah. We don't have a
I
contract.
heard that these 3 fields will be in addition to 3 that Raymond already uses. What will happen to the 3 they're already using?
What
Will
will
they
happen
remain-
with the Agawam fields are privately owned fields. The idea is that, you know, you can say that they'll be available in perpetuity, but I don't know as you can really, when they're in private ownership, really guarantee that. It's been a great relationship. I think the $2,000 token that we give them is a great deal. Should this fail, that's what we'll continue on forward with. The Mill Street field is problematic, has always been problematic. It was built in a wet area. There's no place to drain. You know, the field is lower than an adjacent pond, they tell me, and it's just not a good situation without a massive amount of work. So that field will continue in some form or fashion, but I think if this were to be approved, this would become the centralized recreational fields and facility of the town. And what you get with this is you get certainty. You get the idea that in 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 years, you're going to have this open space, multi-use field with multiple facilities. You don't have that surety with Agawam.
Does the town own the Mill Street field?
Yes.
So if that was abandoned,
No, we're not proposing to abandon it. I said it's going to continue on in some form. I don't know exactly. It perhaps will not be needed in its current use. I don't know. That would have to be evaluated in the future. But they tell me, and from my involvement with baseball, I can tell you it's awfully wet, and they talk of running sump pumps in the outfield to keep it playable, and it's not an ideal situation for a ball field. There is a children's park there. Maybe something more can be done with that. You know, maybe it becomes some other use, but it's an open public space that we would retain and maintain. This would be in addition to that. Agawam's the one that would drop off.
Bob?
Another field that hasn't been mentioned, used by Raymond Baseball, is the Camp Hines field, and that field will not be available at least for the next 5 years, depending on what they do with it after its current use. And for the town's outlay of 20% of the total cost of the project, I think it's a heck of a value for us. And again, it would take us to, you know, fields would not be an issue going down the road.
The town also owns 2 fields through the RSU. So I noticed by its absence being mentioned that there's a reason for that.
Yeah, we don't control those fields, and scheduling is difficult, they tell me. And
Not really.
People in the town.
Not really. We've never had problems with the RSU.
Yeah,
And I disagree with you, Mr.
Yeah, well,
Mr. Town
okay.
Manager. Well, no, Rolf, he's making false statements, and I have to correct him, because we've never had problems with the RSU as far as softball, or baseball, or t-ball, or anything, so,
Yeah,
you know, please don't say that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, because he's making a very strong statement. We had a meeting with the recreation people, and that's a difficulty, because school use is the predominant use. That's the use that the field is put to. It's not a town facility. If there's time available, and space available, and scheduling available, then yes, the RSU will work with you.
Yep.
The principal mission is not the town of Raymond's recreational needs, it's the school needs.
Yep.
And so that's a problem. And there are also multiple, you know, groups trying to use that limited space that we don't own once again. That's a problem.
Okay.
I disagree.
Brian?
Just a quick comment. I think this is great. This is going in front of the townspeople for a vote, regardless of what I think personally. I think this is the kind of way of doing this to find out. Do the townspeople want this kind of...
It should be on the
facility?
ballot too, Brian.
Yeah, it will be on the ballot.
Well, no, it's not gonna be on the ballot, it's gonna be at town meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the motion on the table is to not recommend.
I don't remember a motion.
Dana,
Oh, yeah, Dana did.
I made the motion. it
I'm
was
sorry.
Seconded by
Sorry.
Peter.
Yeah, sorry.
The motion on the table is to not recommend. All those in favor? Opposed? Let's see that again. In favor? Well, 3.
In favor of the motion.
In favor of the motion to oppose.
Right. And opposed?
Do I have to vote? Is it, am I breaking it?
1.
I was gonna
How'd you
abstain.
vote?
3 and 3.
I'm not in favor of it, but I think it should go in front of the townspeople, so.
Well, it's going in front of the townspeople anyway.
Exactly, so therefore, I guess I oppose.
So you, wait a minute.
No, you
No,
are in favor of the motion.
I'm in
you
favor of
okay?
the motion.
Okay.
In favor of the motion.
The motion is carried then.
Sorry. God, I'm making this hard for you.
Very good.
Makes for good TV, though.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
nothing- not for me, Peter.
So that gets us through the articles. Thank you all.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, it did.
Do we have a discussion? All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.